I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to another edition of I Mix What I Like right here at Black Power Media. Again, I'm Jared Ball. Very happy to be your host. And I got a little bit more for you. Is that... I don't want to mispronounce your name, but shout out to your child, Zara. I got a little bit for you. I got a little bit more for you before we get started. Got a big show today. Dhoruba Bin-Wahad is here. We got another special surprise guest that the remixers will appreciate. Going to join us later on in the show. And shout out to indigenous people. I know we're not going to deal with them specifically today on their day or what is supposed to be their day, but shout out to the indigenous people. And quite the opposite to the man in whose name this day has long been, and in some cases still is, honored. But right there, everybody, wait a minute. I got something else for you. The Chuck Brown estate hit us last week, so we're not gonna continue on with the Chuck Brown Godfather joint. Rest in power to Chuck Brown, of course. But in the same vibe, pun intended, shout out to Vibe Band, I came across something, and I'm gonna get to this right here in a second. So I said last night during Ear Doctor show, shout out to Sundays, that I was gonna prove to you in one snippet of one verse that he is the greatest of all time, bar none. Everybody can put their mics down, but I'm gonna come to that in a minute. So everybody get ready. But I came across this. Let's keep that same vibe going here. Talking about singing and dancing in the morning. The Pocket Queen. That's what it make you do. That's what it make you do. At least try to do. And I know it's just a TikTok, and I don't know if people can see that in the lower right-hand corner of her side and the upper left-hand corner of her side, she's showing you how she puts together this whole beat by herself. Pocket Queen. That's it. Now, when my man is starting at the coffee and when he gets into the two-step, that's me. Everything else is not. That's hospital time and all that. But right there, that's me right there. Now it's not me. Nope, we've gone too far. Too far. Then he comes back here to the two-step. That's me. Right on. Shout out to the Pocket Queen on TikTok. Anyway, so while we still waiting on Dhoruba, who's going to join us here shortly, we also have a special interview that I did with my brother-in-law. So, and I forgot who it was in the chat the other day who was asking me to talk about the Panamanian festival that took place in Brooklyn on Saturday, but we got you covered. So we have an exclusive interview with my brother-in-law before his performance. You're going to see a little bit of his performance, get a little bit of the vibe of the day. We got a little bit of that for you. So at some point before we wrap this morning, we'll get into that. Like I said, if Dhoruba's here, we're gonna, So tell everybody, go grab somebody, tell them we got, get your coffee. We got Dhoruba coming up and a really good show. And as I said, all due respect to indigenous people, and on some level, apologies for not having a show focused on their struggle today. But for us, it's all day, every day. So we'll come back and focus on that struggle, sort of in continuum, continuously. And without the need of a special day for it. But okay, so I'm late. As usual, I'm late. And because so Pharoahe Monch, and this is the text I sent to a little text group of some friends of mine, some hip-hop heads included in this. And I'm going to send you exactly what I sent them early this morning after listening to Pharoahe Monch's most recent album release from 2021, a whole year ago, and I missed it. And it's called 13. Somebody in the chat will know the rest of the title. Magnificent Day for an Exorcism, I think is the full title. And this is what I sent. I said, I am so late. Pharoahe already put the best MC discussion to bed in 2021. 13 is a lyrical masterpiece, perfectly hateful, unmatched. I don't want any more discussion. No Thought, no Jay, no Mos, no Nas, no Moo, no whoever. Pharoahe, period. And to to one particular friend of mine, specifically, I said his first verse of triskaidekaphobia, he wrote for you specifically, and you will love the game of basketball like never before. And I know I'm late, so I know I'll check the chat in a minute to get caught up on that, but it's a power trio of a new formation, a new way of doing the rock and roll power trio, which historically consisted of a lead guitar who would often perform the lead vocals, a bass player, and a guitarist. That's the classic rock and roll power trio. Pharoahe and 13, with these two brothers that he got together with, brother Drew, I think I got his name, on drums, and Macharo. I'll come back to that. I apologize, but one brother on guitar, one brother on drums, and kind of working like a not drum machine, but I don't know, like a laptop for drops and ad libs, maybe a sample here or there, and then Pharoahe standing alone on the mic. He, of course, has produced a lot of his own tracks historically. He sings on his tracks. And then his lyrics are, and as I was telling my daughters literally this morning, and I was dropping them off, I said, listen, Pharoahe, give or take a couple years, is my age. Jay-Z, give or take a couple years, is my age. Snoop, give or take a couple years, is my age. Actually, I think I'm older than Snoop. But give or take, we're all in the same age. And I said, because I just also went back and did it. I went back and listened to Pharoahe's catalog, going back to Organized Confusion. You can hear the growth, as you would expect to hear, of a thoughtful, thinking genius talent. Everybody knew from Organized Confusion back in the day, these dudes are serious. These dudes are extremely highly talented. And as I was reminded in a recent video, Pharoahe, before Nas, has a trilogy, started his trilogy of telling the story, a rhyme from the perspective of a gun, before Nas and his classic, better than Nas, and has done it in a trilogy on consecutive albums, sort of updating it, better than Nas. Before and better. But I was saying to my daughters, you can hear what you would expect to hear if in a decolonized experience, someone getting older and better, more thoughtful, taking more time with his projects, not being rushed to conform to some sort of need to maintain stardom or to fulfill a contract. It was Raucous, by the way, that disturbed his career, the supposedly advanced label that claims to well, they claimed at the time, I remember, by accident, but what they really did was they didn't want to pay who was it, Sony, whoever owned the Godzilla theme song that Pharoahe sampled as he produced his own track that he rhymed on expertly, even if it was just supposed to be a silly banger. Simon Says, but it was Raucous that didn't pay the clearance and got that whole thing locked up for years, scuttled his whole, so anyway. But what you could hear is when you're unfettered by that, you could hear his growth and his genius. He gets better and better. Snoop and Jay-Z, as talented as they are, they're rhyming about the same thing in the same way that they were 30 years ago. On purpose. I know that they could do better, but Pharoahe is on a whole other list. So I'm gonna just do it like this, and then we can get out of here. And then I hope it doesn't get. I hope whatever copyright situation doesn't completely wipe us out. But I'm gonna play this little snippet. I was gonna play something else, but I don't even want to give that platform it's due. I hate the platform so much, but they got 13, so you can find it on YouTube and see them perform this. But this is it. This is it. And then I don't want to hear no more. I don't want to hear no more. So I'm just gonna just listen to this little snippet. Oh, wait. I don't want to do it that way. I'm gonna just move out like this. With ammunition, my magic trick comes to fruition. You disappear. I'm not magician. I've got something to say. Let's see who listens. I've got a gun. With ammunition, my magic trick comes to fruition. You disappear. I'm not magician. Nowhere to hide. I'm gonna get you. Voodoo magic. Singing and listen to the multiple styles. He's going to give you multiple styles in one verse. Then I'm pin him up against the whoop of sending them back to the makers and ending them. I never really been in a position. Fuck, reload. I'm drilling it with the subliminal, then I'm killing with the minimal amount of venom. The fucking venom is venomous. My synonyms written them, then I'm a sentiment inhibited amount of unlimited round to deliver them. Fucking finally finish them. I will leave everyone rick. Just scratch to the red and the force to delivery. I'ma put them in a brain box, make a motherfucker mind stop. Put them in a line watch, 9 drops. Now, you read a motherfucking dime drop. 135 shots, what I prop, 9 drops, the prime watch. Put her in the block. That's it. That's it. It's over. It's over. Everybody stop. Okay. Come on, man. Everybody got to stop playing with me, man. That is the GOAT. It was too low to hear. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't know what to do. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what to do. There's not many options we have here. I just turned it up in my own headphones. The whole album is in your Namdi exactly. So I apologize to Pharoahe. I apologize to hip hop. I apologize to the musical gods and goddesses of the universe for being this late with it. But because I listen to him routinely, he stays in regular rotation, his whole catalog, and I missed this album, and it's amazing. I want to call Mama's Biscuits. That's how much I want it. That's how much I like it. That's how much I like it. You got to hear the whole. Now, the context of that verse and that song is disturbing. And Pharoahe has talked about his concerns with, his own depression and all that other kind of stuff. So he's clearly, but that, so I apologize if it was too low to hear. Please just go check out the 13th album. Just go check out his whole catalog. I mean, it's just, he's just. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Jay-Z admitted to dumbing himself down. So I'm not saying he can't elevate. I'm just saying he hasn't. We don't get to hear it. But with Pharoahe, you get to hear it. He allows us to hear him continue to get better and better and better and better. And I don't understand. I feel bad for writers and MCs. I know you're built to feel like you can do as much as anybody, but there's no, I don't want to discourage anybody, but somebody need to put their pen down. Like my man Rashad Dobbins said from the Cornell West theory, some of these icons should not have their mics on. So Rashad and Cornell and Tim Hicks, those MCs salute and continue on, but there's a lot of folks that should just take what Dobbins said, take heed, listen to Pharoahe, just say, you know what, I need I need to go in another direction. So anyway, Dhoruba, I see you in the studio. Whenever you're ready, just turn your camera on and we can get busy. Otherwise, and yeah, yes sir. So let's take a quick break and come back with the man himself. I don't mean to, I just wanted to Whew, put that to bed real quick and let's get to it. Back in a quick second. Deion Sanders, HBCUs with the man himself, Dhoruba Bin-Wahad. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. Yes. All right, just getting the background reset. All right, right. Oh, what's up? What's up? Oh, our special guest arriving earlier than expected. Surprise, everybody. Hiram Rivera's in the building. What's up, everybody? Dhoruba Bin-Wahad, of course, my favorite philosopher, political theorist, the main man activist, BLA, BPP, BPM regular. We just saw him on the other day with Ajamu Baraka, Jackie Lukman, and Kalanji Jamachango on the Riot Starter. Fantastic discussion, global international politics. And I'm very happy to have both of these brothers join me this morning to drag them all in a different direction politically. At least topically, not politically, but topically, I should say. Dhoruba, how you feeling? Hiram, how you feeling? Let me unmute, make sure everybody's unmuted.
Yeah, I'm doing swell, Jared. You know I'm doing okay, man. If I answered your request at 4 o'clock in the morning, and here I am.
All right, is that? What's that playing in the background? Who's got something on?
That's these kids down in Montgomery.
Okay.
Beefing about Eddie Harris Jr.
Oh, okay. All right, my bad. Right on.
And how he didn't have no class.
Okay. All right. Well, Hiram, how you doing, my man? Good to see you. Thanks for joining us this morning.
I'm good, Jared. I'm good. Real excited for this moment here in Black Power Media Sports. BSPN, if you will.
BSPN, yes. I'm definitely stealing that. That's stolen. Just recognize that's stolen.
Right. And honored to be here with the legendary Dhoruba Bin-Wahad. Yeah. So talking football, but hey, I'll take it.
Hey, I mean, so Dhoruba, as you started chatting with me, and I'm never comfortable not agreeing with you.
That's stupid, man. What are you talking about?
It's facts. If I don't feel comfortable I don't recall there ever being another time where I was like, I don't agree with you. But on this one, I think, we don't see eye to eye on this one. And I said, so we have to have the conversation. I would, any excuse to get you to come on is what it is. So if this will do it, then I'm happy to have it be this. But if we can, I got a little clip so we can hear from Deion himself, and we can sort of set the stage for what set us off on our conversation. And then separately, Hiram had expressed interest in coming on and talking about sports. So I said, let's see if we can get you all on together, and let's do this now. So as you see behind me, this is from a week ago, where the two coaches met after the game. Deion Sanders, of course, the legendary NFL and baseball player. I think one of the best athletes to ever do it. I got to see him live. I was a big fan. I deeply appreciate him for what he did as an athlete with his career, all of that. He became the head coach of Jackson State, HBCU, and has immediately done in coaching what he did as a player and as a pundit or anything else, as a marketer. He got in the mix and started saying, well, where's the money going? And I want my cut, and I want to make sure we get our cut. So as he continues to remind us, for those who don't know, please go check his history. He did this with coming out of college as a defensive back. He recognized that in the NFL, defensive backs were underpaid. He knew he was about to change the game. So he marketed himself, and he famously went to the combine, the slave combine, is something like I think it's appropriately compared to. And he refused to do any of the other. He didn't, no bench press, no jump, no nothing. He went in there, ran the 40-yard dash, and then literally kept running and left the stadium. And to this day has a top 10 40 time in terms of the speed, run the 40-yard dash in under 4.3. Bo Jackson, I looked it up oddly, still has the highest at 4.13 or 4.19, depending on who you believe. But either way, good God. I mean, Bo Jackson, good God. That's amazing. But my point is, Deion did this so that he could market himself and say, listen, I'm not going to get paid like these other cornerbacks. You're going to pay me correctly based on what I do on the field. And I want that to happen for the whole position. And he did that. He got paid correctly. The position changed. The perspective of it changed. Nowadays, cornerbacks can be some of the highest paid players on the field, et cetera. But then so that's been his thing. So when he came to the HBCU world of sports, and he said, specifically in this case, HBCUs, like smaller colleges in general, get a paycheck to play big universities and get punished. And it's supposed to give exposure to some of the smaller schools. It's supposed to give them a chance to see blah, blah, blah. But it's also, of course, to give them a chance to make a huge payday. But he was saying HBCUs get paid far less than PWIs who are set up to do the same thing. And then he went into some other important aspects of it as well, in terms of the emotions and the tactics and the teaching and all the other kind of stuff. So just very quickly, I wanted to set that stage and then play a little clip so you can hear Deion himself making the case in this short segment here. And then we can I'll turn it over to my co-panelists here, and we can chop it up a little bit and get to where we agree and where we disagree, et cetera, and so forth.
And I'm looking at numbers that they gave me. Marshall got $1.25 million to play against Notre Dame. Appalachian State got $1.5 million to play against Texas A&M. Georgia Southern got $1.4 million to play against Nebraska. Okay, and so forth. Now let's get to us. FAMU got $450 to play against North Carolina. Southern, thank God, you got $760. I like that. Alabama State, $590 for UCLA. You probably exhausted that in the flight going all the way across the country. Bethune-Cookman, I don't even know what their payout is. We still trying to find out that. Alabama A&M, $300,000 as well to play against UAB. If we're gonna get our butt kicked, shouldn't it be worth it? How in the world are we selling for the peanuts and the little minute droppings that they're giving us, when everybody's darn near $500,000-$600,000? Should we get together and huddle up as a HBCU and say, we're not playing these beat down games unless we get this? Now, don't go up under it. You can negotiate above, but have the level be $750 or $1 million. Have something. Make it worth your team's while, because you're going to lose players. You're going to lose pride and dignity when we sit up here and telling you we're just as good, but you go out there and show that we're not as good. We're not nearly as good. And then you're losing 3 to 4 players because of the type of beating that you've got. Now you got to lift them and build them back up the next week to go back there and say, you could do it this week. Forget about last week, but you could do it this week. I don't understand that. I don't understand how we allow these other schools to get these type of purses to play against the same team that we're playing against. So who's negotiating this? Can we get together and form a committee or something and say, we're not doing it unless we get $1 million? Negotiate up, but don't negotiate down. And that $1 million should go directly to your football department. They out there getting their butts kicked. Not the rest of the school. They out there getting their butts kicked. They out there getting abused. They out there getting hurt. They out there getting injured. And now you want to spread it out amongst the school? I don't agree with that. If they out there playing, they should reap the benefits of the sacrifices that they're making. I just don't like when I'm seeing guys get 1.4, 1.2, 1.7, or whatever, and we getting peanuts. I don't like that. So that means we're not doing well business-wise. I just want to alarm you on that kind of stuff, because that's the kind of stuff I think about. And that matters to me. That's the ultimate sellout to me. So I'd rather us get together somebody take the lead. I'll be glad to. I'm used to being in that position and say, you know what? We're not doing it. Well, Coach Brown, it's easy for y'all to say, no, we're in the same financial situation. We're not in a better financial situation than any of the rest of everybody. We may do more. We're able to work more, and we're able to go out there and get more because we got to go get them. But when it comes to selling our kids out, I can't take it, man. It frustrates me. It angers me. It upsets me wholeheartedly. And I'm sorry for venting, but when I see that kind of stuff and I look at those stats, and it makes me mad. It really does. Because we're trying to preach that we're just as good. Then we go out there and get beat down for peanuts.
Oop, there it is. Okay, everybody, there it is. That's the short of it. And yes, Deion is coach of Jackson State in Mississippi, and in the graphic, as I was saying behind me, when he played, I think I'm forgetting the brother's name already, but Alabama State, I believe.
Eddie Robinson Jr.
Is that Eddie Robinson Jr. there?
Not
okay, my bad.
Eddie Robinson, but a different Eddie Robinson Jr.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
no
okay.
relation, no
right
relation.
Okay.
Yeah.
No relation. Okay. So he went to shake hands and do the extended, brotherly hug thing. And Eddie Robinson Jr. Resisted it, pushed him off. They had a little, had like a little word or two. Robinson went on to say that he didn't like Deion's demeanor, his approach, his style. And then he went on worse to say that he's not swag. I'm swag. He's not swag. He's not a representative of the conference. So that was so not everybody appreciates or understands or is on the same page with what Deion is trying to do. And I don't know that their disagreement was specifically over this issue, but just that's so. Let me just stop there. What do you all, Dhoruba? You want to lay out what it is that you had to say about all this, and then we can go from there.
Well, thanks for including me in the dialogue. But I'd be more interested to hear what the younger brother Hiram has to say, his take on it before I comment. Is that cool?
It's fine. Hey, whatever you want.
Because I'm more interested in what he has to say right now, because he's younger, and I think that the way this hits him might be qualitatively different than the way it hits me. So okay. I'd be really interested in that.
I think the Deion Sanders stuff has been really interesting to watch since he first came on, right? Deion brings that name recognition. He's prime time and has brought that at least to Jackson State. And the idea is that with Deion's notoriety, Deion's celebrity, Deion's bravado, that is going to have an impact over the whole HBCU football system. Right. And what Deion is trying to do is trying to capitalize on that and impact these pay-for-play games, what they call pay-for-play. So in the elite universities, what they refer to as the Power 5 conferences, the Big Ten, the ACC, the SEC, the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Ohio State University, those schools, the ones you see on Saturday, throughout the season, they schedule these cupcake games, right? These games are going to be easy. They just kind of practice. And they pay these schools because the schools know they're about to get blown out. They're going to lose about 50 on national TV. Their boys are going to be embarrassed. They're going to get run off the field, right? And so they want some sort of compensation for that. And the risk of injury is higher. Deion has spoke about this last year about not playing those games because of this pure physical danger that puts the other players in, because they're playing against damn near professional athletes at that point. And I get his point around the HBCU schools coming together to demand more money. And what you end up having, what's missing here, is that the NCAA is broken up, and Division I football is broken up into two sections, right? It's FBS, which are the schools that I named, and the FCS conferences, which are the D1 AAs, the smaller schools. And they're broken up by facility size, by campus size, by all of that. Within the FCS, the HBCUs are then their own separate thing, right? All of this becomes a consequence of integration. So back when segregation was the rule of the day, right? The HBCU schools were powerhouses in the game of football back when football was coming up. And so you had some of the greatest players, Walter Payton, Jerry Rice, McNair, a lot of folks came out of HBCU schools. Once integration happened, then these predominantly white institutions were able to recruit these players and completely destroyed the whole HBCU system. And so what do I disagree with Deion? I disagree with Deion in his commitment to solely to the money, right? And this thing about, well, we should demand more to get beat down. We should demand more, right, to get more, and then all that money go to the players. What Deion is not saying is that there has been a fight for the last, I would say, almost 10 years at this point, right, around the illusion of amateurism in college football and whether players should be paid or not, right? Deion is staying away from the crux, the main battle that's being had right now around the unionization of college football players, right? To completely remove the veil of amateurism from sports and call it what it is, the minor leagues for the NFL, and pay these boys like what they are, employees of the university, right? And through that, have them unionize, collective bargaining, right? So they can recruit some of those profits that they're making for these universities. I don't know, and I'll wrap up with this. At these predominantly white universities, the Ohio States, the Texases, the Notre Dames, these football teams are making about minimum $60 million a year for their universities. With that money is what they build these cancer centers, these dormitories, these other buildings on campus. I don't see HBCUs being able to generate that level of revenue off of these pay-for-play games, or just in general, while these elite institutions, with their contracts to Nike, with their contracts to Adidas or whatever, still dominate the game. I think for me, the fight is around the unionization of college football and removing that veil of amateurism that has ruled over it and has allowed for the exploitation of these boys for eons and eons and eons. But as Deion is trying to get himself a job at one of these Power 5 schools, that's the other thing, right? Deion is talking HBCU, we're going to bring it back, while actively interviewing for jobs at University of Tennessee, at Florida State University, right? So Deion is trying to get himself off to one of those Power 5 PWIs as well. And so when
Is that why he was defending Nick Saban?
I mean,
well, I think first of all, I think that the brother is correcting on a number of issues, especially in his conclusion. But I think you're wrong about a lot of things. First of all, you're wrong about if you really look at what Deion has been doing and saying since he came to the HBCU, he's going directly he's not just talking about playing to lose and playing to get beat down and getting paid. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about changing the whole mentality of the HBCUs and their approach to these athletes and giving these boys a chance to compete on the level that they deserve to be seen on. I think I totally disagree with that aspect that he's just doing it, for the payday. Sanders already got money. And if you look at the involvement that he had in the recent water crisis in Jackson, Mississippi, he connects the players to the community. Most HBCUs don't even do that. Okay, they just use the fanfare and the university to bring together alumni so they could barbecue on the homecoming days and all of that stuff. So if you listen to Sanders, he's not just talking about getting paid, to get beat down. He's talking about changing the whole flavor of the HBCU, which I agree with, because I think the Boule Negroes that we have right now in positions of misleadership, many of them came through the HBCUs. Many of them were down with the Spike Lee stepping culture and the Greek culture. Look at your homeboy Roly-Poly Martin. He came out of that whole milieu. Okay, so don't tell me about the mentality that Deion Sanders is bringing to this, despite whatever ego or whatever flavors, that swag that he might be, is that he inspires these young boys. I watch it. I watch football. I've watched football very well. And he inspires these young boys. He don't inspire them to just go out there and play and then go on about their business just to get a degree. He inspires them to dominate in whatever they do. He inspires them to win, not
That's
to
his
contain.
word.
And that's my word too, dominate. and that's been my theme from the founding of the Black Panther Party to now, dominate. Okay, and that's what he teaches these kids, and he teaches these kids that in a way that they have respect for him because of his history and because of his swag. What you got to recognize is that, and my boy is in a D1 school, and he's a D-back. He's in a D1 school, and when I look at the politics of these coaches and how these teams are like 70% black, and these coaches really can't. A lot of them can't relate to these kids. They got a system. They got their own world that they're in, and you got to adopt the culture of the community that the team came from. And so you got inner city kids playing in Alabama with Nick Saban. Whatever I want to say about Nick Saban got money, and he's able, the LSUs and Alabamas, they do have the money. And what the brother Hiram was talking about is absolutely clear. You know, that these schools cannot at this particular point draw that type of income money and compete with these schools. And this is what Deion says. They say, well, are you ready to play Alabama? Are you, you touting your quarterback and your teams, and y'all blowing people out? You're ready to play a serious D1, a number 2, number 3 contender? And Deion said no. Because we don't get those big boys up on the front like y'all do. Y'all able to give them money, y'all able to bring them in, and so no, until we able to recruit and get kids coming to these schools like y'all do, then yeah, we might be able to compete. And one of the things I learned from going with my boy around when he had 30 offers from different schools, and when we went around to these schools, one of the things that I saw was that was that the kids themselves, when you say, well, what do you think about going to Deion? I asked my boy that when he was in high school, and they won the championship. This team had won the Georgia State Championship and was number 3 in the country. I said, son, what do you think about going? Because Deion's doing some work over there. He said, Dad, I hear all of that, but I ain't with that. I can't get the type of exposure. I can't get the type of training and access to the facilities that we need. So what Deion is banking on is the fact that these kids are black. And they come from a culture that when they go to a stadium and there's 60,000 black folks and families in that stadium watching them play, that's a whole different vibe than when my boy goes to Morgantown and there's 70,000 white folks sitting there singing Country Roads. You see what I'm saying? And so I agree with the brother Hiram about in his final conclusion, and what he was saying, that it is about organized. It is about these kids getting paid. It is about them having a union. And it is about them being recognized, because going to work as a student athlete is a job. That ain't no joke. I can't even talk to my boy for weeks because he ain't got no time. You see, and so it's a job, and they do need to get the benefits from it. I think the NIL, the name, image, and likeness, and being able to go into the portal and choose where you want to go is a big step forward, because before the NIL, these kids were taken for granted completely. Now coaches got to pander to them to make sure that they don't push that button and leave the next year after they done cultivated them. A lot is at stake now. So I think the Deion coming along with the HBCU is providential. I think it's really meaningful. Whether he wants to move on or not to another school, that's neither here nor there. I think that the major thing that Deion is showing is that the class nature of HBCUs has been stultified, has been completely insular and rigid, and they have not focused on creating a new generation of black youth who believe that whatever they do, when then they go out and do it, that they should dominate it, that they should control, that we should control our own resources, that we should control our own community, that we should control even our own facilities that produce water, that give us water. And I think that when you break it down like that, you'll see whatever the limitations of Deion's personality may have. Personalities are necessary for in historical moments. Certain personalities were meant to be there at a certain point in time, whether we want to call it a spiritual divine intervention or whatever. Russia, Soviet Union wouldn't have won the war without Stalin. Okay, so we need to understand that whatever faults he may have, and I use that as an analogy because I think the HBCUs have produced generations of bootlickers. I think they've produced generations of intellectuals and academics who are not about the struggle and empowerment of Black people, but instead about their own class and caste and fraternity interests, you know, and
So,
that's what we have.
That point, sticking with that point right there. Let's say Deion is successful in the next couple years. He's able to pull some of the top recruits. The commercials are coming. They're putting these schools on ESPN. They're putting them on NBC, CBS on Saturday afternoon, right? And the millions are coming in. Given what you just said about HBCUs, class contradictions, right? The class composition, the class contradictions of HBCUs historically, and for the fact of the matter, universities are nothing but class training programs anyway.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
What tells us, what makes us believe, leads us to believe that through Deion Sanders, right, and what he's trying to do with the football programs, that somehow that's going to have some sort of revolutionary change or radical shift over what these institutions are there to produce in the first place, which is this talented 10th mentality, right? Because I push back and say, I do believe that HBCUs prepare Black folks, and I'm not saying that they're just purely like, pushing out a missed leadership class. A lot of brilliant and amazing people come out of HBCUs historically and continue to do so, right? And so I don't want to just solely put it there. But they're universities, first and foremost. And universities also, like football teams, only care about the profit. They are not that invested, right, in the individuals, and they play according to the order of the day, the system, right, that we live under. And so what is the likelihood, right, that you are banking on, or it seems like you're banking on, that Deion is going to be able to cause some sort of radical shift in the politics of these institutions through their football teams? That's where I don't line up, right? Where we're talking about, and yes, and we can tout pro-Black and we can tout all this, right? And a lot of folks who use that same language and say that we need our own independent institutions, our own organizations, our own banks, our own this, our own that, while still pushing Black capitalism, while still pushing a political misleadership. And this is where I feel like the Deion thing, because we get so caught up in the bravado in what he brings in a lot of this messaging and in his positive messaging. I don't doubt that Deion doesn't care about his boys and all the boys who play at HBCUs. I don't doubt that, right? But Deion is a football player. Deion is an entertainer. Deion is not a theoretician or his.
Well, yeah, but that's where we come in at. And I agree with that. And that's one of the things that Jared was trying to point out. That the intricacies of how the HBCUs are situated in the educational milieu in America is very difficult to just see as overcoming just through a sports program or just through a personality who comes along and who's able to shake up things in passing. I think that although Deion might not be around in the long term to see any type of significant transition in HBCU's relationship to sports, to mainstream sports, because sports in America is a business, and it's part of the capitalist. It's part of the capitalist corporate matrix. I mean, Jared and you perhaps are better situated to point that out and how funds are being raised and used. But as pointed out by both of you, some of these universities are pulling tens of millions of dollars every year because of their sports programs, because of their football programs. And that money is then, or a significant portion of it is then gone into promote the brand of the teams and the university. That process is not happening in the Black universities, in the HBCUs, because they're not pulling in that type of money. But as was pointed out, I think that you pointed it out earlier, that in the beginning, when the HBCUs were independent, a lot of players were getting drafted into the NFL straight from the HBCUs. They didn't have no NIL portal. They didn't have no instant replay highlights, and all of that stuff. They was getting drafted straight up on talent. I mean, Eddie Robinson, the original Eddie Robinson, was at one time the winningest coach in football, bar none. I mean, I think Nick Saban was still an assistant coach probably back then. You see, he was the winningest coach in football, and that's what brought the NFL to look at his teams. You know, it's the same thing with the Negro baseball league. You remember all of the players in the Negro baseball league who would have lit up the major baseball league, but they never had a chance. But all of the major league scouts used to go to these black games and see the Satchel Pages and see the talent and try to steal them away to Jackie Robinson and ease them into the major leagues. I mean, the first black player that played in the South at the height of the so-called civil rights movement, at the height of desegregation, he went to Alabama. You know, and the coach, straight up racist, said, look, man, you know, we need these boys to win. I mean, I think Hiram knows better than I do the history of how blacks had to struggle just to get into a quarterback position. We know that was the same thing in basketball. We know that when Dr. J made a move, it was athletic, and when Larry Bird made a move, it was cerebral. It was, oh, he knows the game, and he's, you know, and Larry Bird is the greatest that ever did it because he's a student of the game, but Dr. J was just an athlete. You see. And so we know that these tropes are being broken down right now as we speak by what's going on. That's why.
And before there was Will Smith, there was Dr. J.
That's right.
Punching somebody in the mouth on the floor.
I mean, yeah,
because I'm just saying, he and Larry Bird had a famous fight, and then it became a video game that for some of us of a certain generation, it meant a lot to. And I literally never played Larry Bird's character on my Commodore 64.
I can't stand anything that came out of Boston, you know. And I mean, that's been me. You know, I'm from New York, so I hated everything that came out of Boston. You know,
can I because I think I feel like I have a lot to say, and I disagree, unfortunately, with a lot. But I wanted to sort of break up my two speaking parts. Break up my speaking into two parts. One would be this one, where I would like to just show a little bit of an article here to give us and our audience a little more context to what we're talking about. I think it's a pretty strong article, HBCUs at the Financial and Competitive Crossroads of College Sports, from the Journal of Blacks in Higher Education from February of this year, Dr. Al Tony Gilmore. I'll make sure the link is in the show description if it isn't already, but there's just a couple of things from this that I just wanted to go over to give some more context, and then I'd be happy to hear what each of you has to say. And then in my next commentary segment, I'll offer my responses. But in 1968, the National Urban League sponsored the Morgan State and Grambling game, only a few months after the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., which attracted a crowd of over 60,000 to New York's Yankee Stadium. Sports writer Bill Rhoden remembered, quote, "Somebody said it was the beginning of the beginning, but it was the beginning of the end." In many ways, he was correct, because it was also the time when the predominantly white colleges and universities first began to aggressively recruit black athletes. Following the 1970 defeat of the segregated University of Alabama team by an integrated University of Southern California team led by an all-black backfield in a nationally televised game, former University of Maryland coach Jerry Claiborne famously said that the game did more for integration in Alabama in 60 minutes than Martin Luther King Jr. did in 20 years. That game marked the opening of the floodgates for the recruiting of black athletes, though a leak in the dam had occurred in 1966 when Texas Western College, now University of Texas El Paso, with an all-black starting lineup, won the NCAA basketball title by defeating an all-white University of Kentucky team. But what those two games meant for the future of athletics at predominantly white institutions was the direct opposite of what they ordained for HBCU athletics. They launched the former on an upward trajectory and caused a downward spiral for the latter, much more pronounced in the revenue-generating sports of football and basketball, which largely fund all non-revenue-generating collegiate athletics. Since that time, money has come to totally define the operation of NCAA-sanctioned college sports, and the monopoly of HBCUs once had on the best of black athletes is a distant memory of the past. The schools with the best athletes make more money than the schools without them, and the best black athletes have overwhelmingly chosen PWIs with Power 5 and mid-major schools since the early 1970s. Those schools with superior resources provide wider exposure for the talented student athletes. That was just some of the context. There's obviously more here that talks about the arrangement of the leagues that Hiram sort of already went over. We can come back to that as well. There's discussion of where the money goes that I'd like to maybe come back to as part as well. And then sort of what Dhoruba was talking about here, some of the budgetary differences that are seen here. Many HBCUs with a lower division, as well as lower division schools, have athletic budgets of around $4.5 million. In some cases, the salaries of a Power 5 conference coach is more than that. And larger MEAC and SWAC schools have budgets of 10 to 14 million. By comparison, higher division PWIs have over $100 million budgets. So there's a huge discrepancy. Now, here's just some of what Deion was talking about, what teams are paid to take these kinds of beatings. Several years ago, Howard University lost its first 2 games of the season by a combined score of 118-0, 76-0 loss to Boston College. South Carolina State lost to Clemson 59-0 and received a check for $300,000. Dell State 79-0 for for $500,000. Prairie View 67-0, $450,000. Morgan State lost to Marshall 62-0, and on and on and on and on it goes. Howard lost to Maryland 62-0 a couple of years ago. And then they talk about the $400 million annual revenue of the NCAA. That's the sort of pot that everybody is trying to get a piece of. I think we've already covered some of that, the transfers. Anyway, so that I just wanted to give some added additional context. But Hiram, Dhoruba, any response or thoughts on any of that? Anything more you wanted to say on any of that? And then there's some things that I would like to, I'll come back to whenever after.
One question that I have with the money, because I'm not against HBCU schools getting money. Using football teams as an avenue to do that is nothing new. It's what all the schools do. Unfortunately, in this country, right, sports rules over academics, right? And so folks use these football teams as revenue generators, like I said, to pay for classes, to pay for a lot of the other sports, women's sports, and some of the other sports like tennis and golf at the universities comes from football money as well. Libraries come from football money. It's just the unfortunate reality in this capitalist bourgeois state that we live in. The thing that stands out for me, and the question I have, is that HBCU football is much more than what happens on the field. And oftentimes what happens on the field is not even the reason why folks go to HBCU games, right? And Deion is definitely trying to change that by putting a better product on the field, so they don't have these shellackings that they end up suffering against these bigger schools, right? But let's say that the HBCU, let's say Howard and FAMU, Southern, Grambling, right? They all start making $60 million as well, right? These institutions become much more wealthy. How does that change the culture that makes HBCU football? The band, the dancing, right? The classics. A big piece, right, that gets left out here is that a lot of this money also gets made in these bowl games. And these schools are chasing national championships, and they're chasing these bowl games. That's what gives them their notoriety. The Cotton Bowl, the Rose Bowl, the Citrus Bowl, right? All of these. The FCS, so the lower division in which the HBCUs sit in the SWAC and the MEAC, have their own playoff systems with their own bowls. But the HBCUs don't play for those national championship games, right? They don't enter the college football playoff system in the FCS because they have their own bowls, right? Their own classics is what they call it, right? Well, the Celebration Bowl, the Heritage Bowl, right? These different classics that bring in revenue. So real quick, so my concern is, and this brings alumni, this brings Black folks, and again, we're talking about most of this is happening below the Mason-Dixon. up north, right, the HBCU isn't really a thing, and HBCU football isn't really a thing. So for me, then, how does that change the culture, right? The long-standing culture of HBCU football, which are these classics, which are the bands and the dances, which makes it black and separates it from the PWIs. Once all this corporate money starts coming in, once all of this stuff,
well, I think
and the exploitation of players,
I think that's a non-issue, because black folks have been since the bullwhip days believe that we have a right to party. It's a constitutional right for us to party. So we'll party, you know, when the media when the media is hurling towards Earth, we'll be out boogieing and partying. You could believe that. Okay, so having more money is only going to make the HBCU bands and stuff better. They already the best bands and best marching bands in the country, bar none, with no money. And that's just because black people like the boogie. That's because that's what we do. You see, so you know, Grambling's marching band will beat USC's marching band any day in the week. You understand, in terms of choreography, in terms of difficulty of performance, and all of that stuff. So I don't think more money is going to change the culture. I think it's going to make the culture more. I would say vibrant, but we know what yeah. But what I'm saying is, look at what has happened. What has happened with what Defense Department is getting ready to do. I think Jared knows about that. They're looking at black colleges to dump much more money than the football team can get on weapons research, on biological engineering. So they want to put us all down with the military industrial complex and give us a bag. And we're supposed to. So is that going to change the culture of the marching bands? And I mean, if more money comes from the NSA and doing research, is Grambling marching band going to get less black? I don't think so. So I think that's a red herring. I think the black culture will always arise to express each generation's take on whether it's music, on whether it's dance or whatever. And, you know, like an OG, you know, I might not appreciate, you know, Little Squirt and Little Uzi right now, and I might not think they have much talent. But hey, I'm an OG, man. The young generation is buying millions of their records and making them millionaires. So what's my opinion matter? So I don't think more money for the university is actually going to change black culture in the sense, in the performance sense. Now it might redirect it politically and become more reactionary, much like Hollywood has done black actors. You know, I mean, and we got to understand too that as a national minority, we're the only people that have sports figures that are spokesmen for us on political issues. You know, the media goes to basketball players and football players to get their opinion on what black folks' position should be on voting rights or some other political issue. The athlete doesn't say, well, look, you know, I donate to such and such organization and I accept their, you know, and I try to do work with them. Why don't you ask the leader of that organization about this issue? Not me. I'm a basketball player. You see, and I think the athletes and celebrities really don't know their place in this capitalist society and how it could undermine real black development, real sovereign thinking for people of African ancestry. But I do agree with what Brother Hiram is saying, or what he's implying, is that the way that the conferences are arranged is like we're already on the outside looking in, and they ain't trying to let us in, you know. But I think that's starting to change, because I know the SEC is getting teams from California are going to join the SEC. The FCS is changing. All of these things are changing, and that's mainly because of the portal situation too. You know, and all of this has to do with contracts, with media contracts, with ESPN contracts, with rivalries in college school, because college football is much more vibrant and dynamic than professional football. You know,
this is part of my point why I asked about the band stuff, right? Because there's a whole systemic shift that is happening in college football, right? And so what is happening with these media deals, right? You brought the SEC, the Big Ten, is that these super conferences are being created.
Mm-hmm.
New media deals are coming in. The Big Ten schools, so all the schools in the Midwest, again, the Ohio States, the Michigan States, the Minnesotas, all of them, right? Signed a 7-year, $7 billion deal, right? With who was it? ABC, I believe. Each of those universities are about to make $100 to $120 million a year.
That's not counting the bowl games. That's not counting the bowl offers.
The SEC schools, the Alabamas, the Tennessees, the Floridas, right? They're making a little less than $1 billion under their new negotiated contract with ESPN. What is happening now with these mega conferences, you said the regional alignment is all over, right? They're going to be forcing boys from California to hop on planes, fly all the way over to the East Coast to play a game, to then fly back across country to then make sure they're in class on Monday and in workouts all day.
That's where these Thursday night games are starting to pop up.
Right. The toll that's going to take on these boys' bodies is going to be incredible because of the bag. But what's also happening is that the Big Ten, the ACC, and the SEC, the three major conferences in the Power Five, right, which are trying to shrink it down to the Power Three, are already in negotiations about removing themselves from the NCAA altogether. And for those who don't know, the NCAA is the governing body for all college sports, right? What football is going through is its own gilded age, right? If we think about the robber barons of this country back in the 1920s with the railroads and all that, football is going through that moment right now. And they are rebuilding and recrafting the system as a whole, where ultimately these schools want to sever themselves from the governing body, which is a racket in and of itself, right, of the NCAA. But what does that mean? That means that all the sports, from women's sports to all the sports that are not football, will then fall under the jurisdiction of football teams and football coaches and football players, right? Which I mean, we're talking about the regulations of how much time can be allotted for a young person to spend on practice, the regulations around helmet-to-helmet contact hits, the concussion protocols, all that will now be regulated by these football teams themselves, as opposed to this governing body, right? Which for me is madness, right? It's crazy. If we're talking about the extraction of labor from these boys' bodies, when we're talking about Black bodies specifically, right? Then that for me is frightening. The other piece is, when I was mentioning about the HBCUs, is that once they start making this money that Deion wants to bring in, all these things like the classics, all of the classics, which makes them, right, will have to go, because they'll be forced into a system where they're going to have to play for national championships. They're going to have to play the North Dakota State universities. They're going to have to play the Buffaloes. They're going to have to play these schools in this college football season, in this college football system. Right now, the reason they don't play in those college football playoffs is because the scheduling doesn't line up. And for HBCUs right now, playing in the Heritage Bowl and the Celebration Bowl brings in way more revenue than it does playing in the college, the FCS college football playoff. But once they become up at these levels of these institutions, and with this new system that's being created, they're going to have to make a choice. Do you schedule these college playoffs, right, and play these teams because now you're at this level where you want it to be? Or do you still hold on to the classics that made you for so long? Because those two things can't coexist at the same time. And the decision is going to have to be made. And what Deion and them is trying to say is that cash rules everything around. Right. And ultimately, money is going to be king, is going to be decided. And then therefore, that is definitely going to have an impact. Black folks are going to boogie. Absolutely. But you're going to lose, again, continue to erode away. Right. Because we have this erosion of what HBCU football is. The last thing that I'll say is, for me, is the other thing is, these schools are state schools, HBCU schools, right? These schools, universities, they're already underfunded, grossly underfunded, hanging by a thread. Right. And folks are not talking about, we're talking about football teams, we're talking about sports like we do with Ohio State, like we do with the Notre Dames and all that, right? But we're not talking about, and Deion wants that money to go strictly to the football programs. But what happens to these institutions that are already hanging by a thread? And once you put them under the control and the rule of the dollar that's coming from Nike, that's coming from Reebok, that's coming from all of them, what impact is that going to have on these institutions, right? Now, yes, granted, they produce a misleadership class like all universities do, especially those terrorism training camps that they call Ivy League schools, right? But they still also produce a lot for our young people, right? Why is there no conversation about how can we generate that money back into these schools to lower the tuition so more of our brothers and sisters can enter these universities where they're already locked out from the PWIs because of those rising tuitions, right? How come we're not having that conversation right there? How come we're not having the conversation?
Well, I think
politics of these institutions and who comes out, so they're not continue with the boule practices that
I want to jump in on that. I think you're absolutely right, Hiram. Well, yeah, why aren't we having that conversation? You know, and I agree with that. You know, I think that this also dovetails into the fact that Black people don't have an independent political party. We don't have we do not think as a sovereign people. And because of that, we don't put our interests first whenever it comes to the electoral political system, or even when it comes to being entrepreneurs and Black capitalists. We don't really put our
message.
And
sorry, Dhoruba, I couldn't help that one. Sorry about that. Just
I think that what Hiram is pointing out is definitely a spoiler alert. You know, for if we're just talking about it's all about the money. You see what I'm saying? It's also about understanding the roots of the HBCUs. The roots of the HBCUs came out of the fact that after Reconstruction, that Black people could not get into the mainstream colleges. They were banned from that. We had no systems of higher education. We had beefs between those who were abolitionists and believed that we should abolish the mercantile system that enslaved us, and those who said that we should be, you know, we should just get vocational training and just, you know, go along to get along, you know, fit in where we can get in, you know, and this all comes from the fact that after Reconstruction, citizenship was forced on African people. Basically, we had no sense. There was no referendum on what we wanted to do, and that hits. And so the institutions that have come out of this segregated and what I call domestic colonization is why the HBCUs are where they at today. You know, and I'm not saying that as Hiram pointed out, many of forward-looking academicians and Black minds and professionals came out of HBCUs, you know, and contributed to the African diaspora's experience in this country. And I don't mean in a negative way, you see, but what has happened is when over time we want to be safe. You know, I think if we go back and read the Black Bourgeoisie by E. Franklin Fraser, that we could see the roots of this problem in the HBCUs when he's talking about how we got a Black middle class that really has no power, that really doesn't exercise the economic and political power of a historical middle class. You know?
Message.
This Jared, man, don't stop messing with you, man.
I just want to throw a little exclamation point on your point.
I think Hiram is making a good point. What is going to come out of this? What is going to come out of this realignment, and where are we going to be in this process? And yeah. The bigger picture of where sports is going. I don't think it's just football. You know, I think we saw this when the women's soccer team won international acclaim, and the women came out talking about they ain't getting the same pay as men and not the same recognition and all of this. And now, you know, there's been announcements from FIFA and all of them. The women's soccer players are going to get the same rate, the same pay. So now it's negotiating.
So, but Dhoruba, if I may, this would be a good, I think a good moment for me to jump in, because that's sort of my point, and where I think a lot of what Deion is doing is being misunderstood, and why a lot of his classmates are in agreement with him, like Roland Martin and others. A lot of the Black capitalists, particularly entrepreneurial media class. That's why he was on Earn Your Leisure the other day, and I did watch a majority of that interview.
What did you think about that? What did you think about that interview?
So my point is, so to draw the parallel, the women who, what the women ended up fighting for and what they won was a bigger piece of the collective pie created by all the money that soccer generates, men, women, et cetera, and so forth. And because they were winning so much and way more than the men, they had a bigger platform to stand on to make their point. But my point is, ultimately, all they were advocating for was a greater portion of the pie. What Deion is advocating for ultimately, again, is just more of the ad revenue that is generated by college football. He's not advocating anything momentous or radical. And in fact, I think he's taking a very legit issue.
Well,
why
what would you consider? What I hear that. I could hear that, because I could see that. I don't look at Deion as a revolutionary figure, or a revolutionary activist. So I wouldn't expect for him to do that. However, that doesn't mean that in a particular situation, one who advocates even moderate change can be seen as radical reformation. But I'm really interested in what you thought about that interview, Jared. Because I kind of like agree with you, and I definitely agree with what Brother Hiram was saying about the possible outcome of these new contracts but what I think is what I wanted was from you, though, Jared, was what you thought about that interview.
So, right, I'm gonna get there, but so this is what is missed in all of this again is what I think. And why I want to do this is why I wanted to host this conversation, and why I want us to have sports more broadly discussed on this platform, and why I humbly disagree with those who disagree with me, like those in the chat, like Sister Emma, all due respect. Like, these are not frivolous topics. And to Norman Henderson's comment a little while ago, Dhoruba is the one that got at me over this. I didn't drag Dhoruba into this. So like, Dhoruba is very interested in this discussion. So don't put it all on me.
I'm the guilty party.
No, but they were saying that. With all due respect, like, if they were like, people like, why is Jared making Dhoruba, slum himself? And I'm like, it's not my fault.
Whoa!
But my point though, Norman it was one of the people in the rebate a little while ago. It was just a comment about, it was just saying like Dhoruba looked bored or something. Like, here we go. Like, Dhoruba seems uninterested in this foolishness. And what I'm saying is, this is not foolishness. In the proper setting, much can be revealed in what's going on here. That's why I think what we're doing here is important.
I think the brother. That's why I wanted. That's why I wanted the brother Hiram to go first.
Right. That's why. And that's what I'm saying.
And he laid it right out. Some things I disagreed with him on, but only in terms of dimension and significance. But overall, what he's talking about has massive implications for a lot of young kids that's coming up to go into college.
So this is what I'm saying is being missed here. So this is another one of these, I think, fake crowd pleasing arguments that people can get applause points off of, like, again, like with buying power and other popular concepts that give people this symbol, this mirage of radicalism, but they're really not. And it doesn't expose what is, again, the colonial relationship that we have in general, and that HBCUs reflect in the higher academic or higher educational, higher academic world, or educational world, whatever they want to call it. So it is the perfect colonial model in the sense that the best players, so going back into the history of the HBCUs in sports, the best players, of course, while they were playing at HBCUs, could individually be plucked into the NFL and whatever, but they were not going to be paid until they entered or mined and entered the colonial apparatus that is professional sports, or later on, as we are now, into higher level PWI dominated sports spaces. So in other words, if you stay at an HBCU, you're not going to be allowed to make the money. You're not going to be allowed to get the recognition that you would get in these higher stages, because that is the colonial relationship. You're not of any value to the colonizer while you are sort of left in your natural resource state. So what gives them value is when they can be plucked to play for a professional team or a bigger university. So that's one thing. Given the ad revenue relationship that all of this works around, Morgan State plays in Division I and has a 10,000 seat arena. So unless you start booking games at Raven Stadium, there's not going to be ad revenue. You could pack every seat in there. you're not going to get enough attention that's going to make Adidas and then want to pay the ad rates, et cetera, and so forth. And then once the bigger PWIs, just as any colonial relationship would recognize, once PWIs saw that, wait, if I'm Nebraska and Alabama and UCLA, and all of a sudden my best recruits are going to some HBCU, that's not going to sit. That's not going to sit well. That's going to kick into activism all of the boosters and all of the financial and political apparatus that get involved to cut that off and make sure these players end up where the colonial apparatus needs them to end up. The last thing I'll say, at least for now, is that when it comes to this naming and image licensing rights, the one thing that Deion said in that Earn Your Leisure interview that I thought was of value to us is that he said the correct point and then took it in the wrong way analytically or for interpretation, which was that Black players at HBCUs do not, as I was just saying, get the exposure to make having control over their naming and image license rights mean anything to them. It only means something if you are known and can turn that into revenue generating. But if you're only stuck at an HBCU where nobody's watching you, nobody's seeing you, it doesn't matter. And what Deion said was that the real reason they gave over and allowed for the NIL to take place was so that the rich boosters at rich white universities could now legally funnel their money to their favorite athletes to make sure they end up at those PWIs. Because again, Black people do not have enough money. So again, right around in that same conversation, Deion comes right back around and to blame Black people for not supporting their universities enough, without recognizing that, of course, Black HBCU grads, Black people in general, do not have what white university grads and white people have, and cannot give back to these universities at the same rate, even if they wanted to. So then, with the NIL making everything legal now, all these super rich white boosters can now fully legally do what they were doing illegally before, and just funnel all the money they want to their favorite players and make sure that there's no benefit to going to an HBCU for a player. And then the last point I would just want to make very quickly is that when Deion says the money should go to the football team, it totally disrespects, again, not only the institution itself, but the broader politics of where I and what would want us to be. We need to be focused on not how do we get our better share of the crumb. We need to make sure that no matter what anybody does or doesn't do, we all benefit from everything that is made, because we've all already contributed to this wealth that has been created. So instead of saying, let's make more money and then give it only to the football team because they're the ones earning it, what he should be saying is the $400 million that the NCAA is getting is coming wildly out of Black communities' production. All of that money should go back to all of those communities, regardless of where they particularly played a role. Because ultimately, I will stop here, Drew, but I just want to say, but ultimately, coming from the perspective of faculty who actually cares about the intellectual development of students, if the money that is only going to be generated, to Hiram's point, based on the capitalist model of football sports production, and then it goes only to the football team, then what are we doing with the rest of the university? And what are we really saying about these universities? Why don't we just create that league that Hiram is talking about and then cut all this nonsense out and focus on education? I think that's
an oversimplification. Nobody, when you listen to Deion talk to other players and other athletes and to other people that he brought there, if you notice that whole Jackson State University playing field, he basically is the one that raised the money to pay for it. So you have a point. Both you and Hiram have a point about how the larger leagues are able to mobilize their wealth base, those who have money, to bring the players that they want there, and they could generate much more. I think the same rule applies to these Negroes who are intent on getting in Forbes 500 as the most richest Black person on the planet. You have these Black capitalists. They wanted to buy basketball teams, didn't they? Look at what happened in Brooklyn Brooklyn with the NBA. How come all of these Negroes want to buy basketball teams and then none of them want to fund an HBCU team or compete with these young kids? A lot of these young kids coming out the hood would go to a school where they got black swag rather than a white school, but the money ain't there, the exposure ain't there. So I'm saying you got the P. Diddy's, you got these other these knuckleheads with all of this money. I mean, they want to buy football leagues. They got contracts with the NFL to do halftime performances. They want to do all of that with the mainstream thing. So why ain't you hollering at them to match the money to get the type of draftees and the type of athletes to the HBCUs, expand their facilities? I mean, if Jay-Z's a billionaire, I know he ain't never went to college or nothing. I don't think he did. But what's to stop him from putting this chump change, a chump change 500 million, you understand, or 200 million into a 70,000 seat stadium for Morgan? That means Morgan got to play a 70,000 seat stadium game. And the money that's generated for that, I don't think any football team out there thinks the money that they're getting should just go to the football program and just go to football players and F the rest of the university and the faculty. I don't think that's
he did say that. Well, Deion did say that, and that's sort of my point about what it forgets, because what it leaves out, it's just sort of like what I'm saying about at the macro level about the nation. The gross domestic product, that $20 trillion pot, instead of fighting over who should have what based on ownership and labor, it should be we've all created that wealth, so we should all benefit from it more or less equally. Absolutely. So the same thing here. That when Deion, because he said it multiple times, that the football team should get the money because they're the one putting the risk and putting in the work and the one generating the money. But he leaves out just about again how an economy works. What about the grant money that faculty bring in? What about the awards that faculty and student bring in? What about the tuition that students pay? What about
obviously none of that money went to the football team. So
obviously it does. Wait a minute.
It didn't. If you got a 10,000 stadium and you getting grant money and all, ain't none of that went to the football team. If you in a locker room with roaches and rats, ain't none of that went to the football team.
That's not
true.
But it is true, Dhoruba. My point though is that you could say the stadiums and the locker rooms are substandard. You could say that about dorms, as was the case at Howard recently, and so on and so forth. But my point is the money that pays for all of that, I'm not saying it's used properly. I'm not saying, but the money but I'm saying when Deion says it all comes that football does. It ignores what the rest of the university does to contribute to all of that. It ignores the fact that we are there.
But that's what you're there for. But I don't think that that's what he's saying. I'm thinking what he's saying. He's saying. I think this is what I get from him saying. This is a transitory period, and he says that what he's going through doesn't mean that what we're going through right now is supposed to be the end product. Okay, I don't think that what he means is that if Jackson State started making $150 million a year every season, all the money is going to go into the football program and the rest of the school like F y'all. That's not what he means, and I don't think he means that, because I heard him say on plenty of occasions that a better performing team, a team that feels more confident about themselves, can bring that type of attitude to the rest of the university, and they should, and they have to share. And it's not just sharing attitude here. You right. You absolutely right. How the hell are you gonna have a football team if they started going to the Rose Bowl and they getting 150 million to 200 million a year just to show up at a bowl game? How all of that money gonna go into to 53 players or 100 players on the football team, and the rest of the school is like, hey man, F y'all, y'all got to get it yourself.
But my real point in that, though, Dhoruba, is that again it ignores the political economy of sports and the relationship HBCUs have to it. There is that even with what he's able to do at Jackson, that's based on. So a lot of what I hear him saying is based on his exceptional experience, and this is what often happens with people who are successful in business or athletics or whatever. They and why they're not good coaches in many cases. I'm glad to see it's not the same with him. They expect that everybody can perform the way they did or do what they did.
But you're supposed to have that expectation. expectation. Even in the
But
black
D-
movement,
but-
I expect your academics like you to perform the way that your icons.
he stood up on us, Hiram. He stood up on us,
Yeah,
Hiram.
you
I
need
see
to.
you, D.
Yeah, you
I'm
got
just
to.
saying.
Y'all got to follow that too.
But
He
D, but
flexed
when
a
you're
little bit
offering,
too.
he did, I know. But when you're offering your honest and most objective analysis, you will also recognize that the times are different, that the conditions aren't the same, right? So that's all I'm saying. That's all I mean by that. That Deion has to recognize that after 20 years or whatever, after retirement, he still has a top 10 40 time. You understand what I'm saying? So he performed at a level that almost no other human can ever perform at. And then he's looking down at the rest of us regulars as an alien or whatever.
I know
I
know these kids right now. I know these kids right now that's in the portal, that's in the mix, that's gonna break that record, sitting on the sidelines.
But my point is, But Dhoruba, my point is we shouldn't have to produce somebody who can run a 4.2 40 so that we can have a football team or a college or a community or a job. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying.
What you saying? We should produce somebody that runs a 5.7
what I'm saying is
because he's waving the red, black, and green flag.
No, what I'm saying is the one who runs a 4.2 is helping produce wealth that helps the one who doesn't even play have a great life and vice versa. That's what I'm saying. And what I feel like
what's happening.
No, it's not. It's not happening.
Why not?
It's not happening because again, and we haven't even gotten to the colonial relationship of the institution. So even when all this money comes into the HBCU, where does it end up going? Morgan State again is a public institution. Anyone can go look up everybody's salary.
But we know where it's going because they kicked you out your office and you didn't even know it. So we know where it's going. You came to your office one day and there was a different sign on the door. Somebody was sitting in there with their feet up on the desk, and you was like, do I got the wrong spot here? And administration had said, oh, my bad. We should have told you last night. You understand?
They sure did.
We know where the money's going.
Jerry, real quick. I think I find it, and I don't want to delve into conspiracy theory, but the timing of all this, right, also has to be taken into account. And so there's two things that have come up. One, the NIL, the name, image, and likeness deals, where it says that young athletes in the NCAA are now allowed to get paid contracts for commercials based off their name, image, and likeness, which came after a decades-long fight over these young athletes not being able to be paid, while institutions, the universities themselves were getting paid from jersey sales, ticket sales, video game sales, and all of that. But why did that happen? Because the unionization movement kept growing and growing stronger and stronger and stronger, right? Where the National Labor Relations Board even said that football players are university employees and should be paid as such. Then the university pops up, the NCAA pops up, says, okay, chill. Give them NIL deals. Some of you, the Deion Sanders, who run their 4.2 40s. And remember, Jared, right? Back when Deion ran his 40 and Tims. Right?
Oh, damn. I forgot about that part.
Deion ran his 40 and Tims. Right. But these exceptional athletes are able to make millions of dollars at 18 years old before they even set foot on a college football field. But that was to undermine the movement that was growing to organize and unionize as a part of this union busting across the country itself, right? College football. Because again, understanding to Jerry's point that the reason these institutions, the Ohio States, the Notre Dames, the Miamis, are so profitable, so big time, is because they are factories into the NFL, right? That grinds up these athletes, that extracts as much they can from these black bodies and then toss them to the side. We see the brother Tua, right, collapsing on the field two games in a row, right, dying before our eyes for the sake of millions of dollars. That's what makes them profitable. If you can channel these boys and these black bodies up into professional ranks to keep making these corporations and these businesses billions of dollars. And so they hit them with the NIL to stump the unionizing movement, right, after the Labor Relations Board said these are employees. The other thing is Deion busts on the scene. Now we have this heightened visibility of HBCU football right after these George Floyd protests, right after this uprising around police violence.
Well, you're
right,
really
and
into conspiracy theories.
police violence. We all know that sports are used as an escapism. They're used to drive our minds, our attention, or everything away from what really needs to be the fight that we need to be fighting. So instead of having a conversation, instead of Deion being like, you know what, I love my boys so much, right? And I don't want them getting killed out, because Deion's not going to talk about the police. Deion's not going to talk about the defense contracts that go to Howard University. Deion's not going to talk about all of those things, because Deion knows where his own paycheck comes from, right? And he's not going to instill that in his boys, because he wants them to go back up to that meat grinding factory known as the National Football League, right? But we can't remove those two things, that when the country is going through this national uprising and the streets are on fire and cop cars are being burned down all over the place, right? Now that energy has shifted off into a whole bunch of other different stuff. And
well, wait a minute,
HBCU.
Hold on.
College football.
D, before you respond, let me just respect the super chat here real quick. Kepper Ross says the issue with money in college athletics is further complicated by the Brett Favre incident and the corruption of capitalist exploitation of poor communities to the benefit of these big institutions. Thank you for the super chat, and you're right. Yeah,
I think Hiram's absolutely right in pointing out. But this feature of encapsulation of Black movements and Black energy has been going on long before the NIL came along. But sports was always that avenue, was always that venue to undermine. So this ain't nothing unique. However, what you're pointing out about how the NIL has come along after the protest, the 5 years at least of athletes protesting, some of them going on strike, trying to form unions, and being knocked out in the court saying that they were students, that they weren't. The NIL can be seen as an appeasement for this. This gets me to my whole point from the beginning. We don't understand our radical history and our radical traditions, and therefore we reinvent failure when we don't understand it. We've already fought this fight and we won it. Okay, we already won it. We already had fought this fight. Remember when we was talking about how historically the NFL used to pick Black players out of the HBCU straight away. Okay, and with the coming of these new regional and leagues and contracts and stuff, that we just became cannon fodder. We just became a plantation, like Jared pointed out, to produce players to go up into the big house of the NFL. And but we can't lose fact we can't lose sight of the fact that domestic colonization is what typifies the powerlessness of Black people in the United States, and our denial of that fact, that we are essentially a domestic colony, that African people in the United States have been colonized in a unique and a unique way, means that all of the institutions that come out of that colonization are reflect that relationship. And I think Jared was pointing that out. Hiram is pointing that out, which means that Deion Sanders has limited use value. Okay, he has limited use value, and as we as revolutionaries and we as people who understand the ebb and flow of history should understand, just like Hiram pointed out, and I teased him. I said, "Oh, you're on some conspiracy theory stuff." Well, just because you got a conspiracy theory don't mean it's wrong. You see what I'm saying? And he's I think because encapsulation is a strategy of institutions, and to encapsulate the energy and the vitality of HBCUs has always been part of the game. Has always been. They picked our doctors and heart surgeons out of HBCUs and put them in the major in the major medical institutions, and he has to tell us as he's writing his memoirs. Oh, I went to Morgan State Medical School. Oh yeah. That's how you got started, and you got a Pulitzer Prize or whatever for.
But see, Dhoruba, this is what I would like to see to reflect the understanding of your what you're saying here. I would like to see. I just did the math here. If Black people are supposed to be 14%, and then we could double that if we expand the diaspora to Latin America, et cetera. But if just at 14% of 400 million, if I'm reading this correctly, what is this number here? Is this 1,
56
2,
million.
3, 1, 2, 3. Is that 56 million? Okay, so
Yeah.
$56 million. So my point would be 14% of the 400 million annual revenue of the NCAA should just go to HBCUs without them having to play 1 second of a game.
I'm with that.
So but that would be my point. But see, but that level of, I think, argumentation gets cut off by the presentation of this problem by people like Deion and Roland Martin.
Absolutely.
And others. So
absolutely.
that's why.
Jared,
all I'm saying is that's why I wanted us to have this conversation.
But this is why we are having this conversation.
No, I know. I'm just saying.
The same way we do understand the value of why the enemy is waging, quote, culture wars with us right now. How they trying to redefine the slave trade and make it look like it was involuntary involuntary migration. You know, and choice, I mean we know, and all of us know the power of definitions, and in order to rationalize and justify where you're at. I think Deion Sanders has complete limitations when it comes to dealing with what we're talking about. This is not his role. Taking it to this level, his role, what I see, his role right now, given his notoriety and given the way he could bring attention to a team and his coaching style, I think his role, however limited it is to start kicking the lock in the door. Is to start kicking the door. And now there's other people that got to come through this door. There's things that's going to happen with the HBCU vis-a-vis the major conferences that's going to change everything. And I think it's going to happen in the next 2 years. And it's going to be a result of this contradiction. It's up to you. It's up to brothers like Hiram. It's up to people who have this analysis and this understanding of the business of sports and capitalism and white supremacy, on how those forces come together to exploit our youth, to misdirect our educational systems, and to cut us out of the pie. I think that the overview that Jared just pointed out is going to be my new mass line. You know, if we should get this cut of the pie straight away. I'm into sports reparations. You understand? I'm in the sports reparations. You understand? The combine, as everybody's trying to point out, is to try your buck farm. You know, let's see if your buck could run faster than my buck. You understand what I'm saying? And yeah, we could characterize all of that. Give us our bag straight away.
No,
thanks, Megan, for the super chat.
I'm with that part. But I think that Deion could play a role here. I know that Deion is a born-again Christian, that he believes that he's on a mission from God.
Oh yeah.
You know,
he said God called him collect, and he took
and God and the law, and I'm a Muslim, and I know the law raises those up in certain times to fight those battles and those struggles that need to be fought. You see, and in the Quran it tells you, if those who are hungry, those who are suffering, those who are in prison, those who are exploited, who would defend them if not but you? So I'm with Deion kicking the door in. You know, I don't know if it's a mission from, I don't know if he's on Jesus's a divine mission, but I do know that the door has to be kicked in. And I think that what Brother Hiram and you were talking about, now that the door is being crunch, now we got to bring the politics to this. We got to step to him. We got to step to those in the HBCU and say, yeah, you know, y'all have gotten moribund in your class approach to bringing Black kids out of here, you know, and we need to make this more dynamic. We don't need to be taking Defense Department money, but if you're gonna take Defense Department money, don't sneeze at football money now. If you're gonna take money from Teledyne and do all of this research, we don't agree with that. The politics of the Deion Sanders has to be interjected. It's not. He's just dealing with it solely, like you said, from the point of view of what his experiences was with the NFL, his connections was with the NFL. And I agree 100% with both of y'all that there's limitations to that. And that those limitations he can be co-opted. He can be encapsulated, and that energy taken into a whole different direction that's not beneficial to the young Black kids that's coming up in the HBCU.
And for me,
Hiram, let me just, Hiram,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah,
Let me
yeah,
just read this super chat. I just want to appreciate, thank you, Megan. We can't fully comprehend racism without an anti-ableist lens, and we can't dismantle racism without an anti-ableist praxis. This is especially true of anti-Black indigenous racism. T.L. Lewis. Thank you, Megan, for that and for your super chat. Go ahead, Hiram. Thank you. Sorry.
And for me, the politics, right? I think the politics in sports. I love college football, right? I mean, it's one of my guilty pleasures or whatever. But I think that the politics, the underlying politics, are really important, right? Because they are lined up with the politics of the country, the politics that's ruling over all of us, right? And so if the majority of our boys are over here in the NCAA, then oftentimes I see what Deion is doing as a distraction. If he can pull it off over there, cool. I have no illusions about what the HBCUs will do or produce, right? Because we've already discussed that at length at the beginning of this. But then again, this issue of unionization, this issue that college football holds on to this veil of amateurism when it's just nothing but a minor league for the NFL, which has its own State Department contracts, which itself is used to propagate a particular U.S. chauvinism, a projection of masculinity, a projection of United States dominance through its military, but also through its sports in these culture wars across the globe, right? Can't be removed. And the majority of our boys are playing in those institutions, right? Then my concern is for the majority of them, not what Primetime is saying or trying to convince people that he's trying to do for a few of these institutions in the South.
Man, we got to take you on the road. We got to take you on the road internationally, man, so you can challenge FIFA, man.
You said what?
We got to talk about solidarity in international sports as well as political solidarity against fascism.
Right, but for that,
you need to give this wrap up with FIFA.
Right, but we also need political institutions. We also need a politic, right? And so we're getting caught up a lot of times because it's through its media, through its magazines, its news, it's prime time. It's what prime time is doing. It's HBCU football, it's HBCU football, but takes the focus away from, again, the issue of union busting, the issue of unionization, the issue of just the grinding up and the consumption of Black bodies on football fields, right? That then go into propagating this military propaganda and this projection of a very particular U.S. chauvinism and masculinity, right, out on the world stage, and then reinforced through people like Deion, who telling the boys, right, that this is your way through, this is how your way out. If our way out still in 2022 is playing sports, then right, we need something else, right? And we need a battle of ideas, something to counteract that. Because if the loudest voice right now talking about Black athletes and Black sports has now become Deion Sanders, when we went from kneeling on football fields to now it's Deion Sanders to get our piece of the pie, I don't want a piece of that pie, right? That whole table's got to go. This whole thing has to go. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we're not talking about. And I feel like we get caught up in the escapism of sports and the escapism of the stuff and the fun in it, and get caught up in these very things like, well, what's prime time doing for these athletes and ideas? And we're not talking about the union busting. We're not talking about the complete eradication of a mass movement in 2020 that has been dissipated through electoral politics, through sports athletics, through BS nonprofit activists and stuff, right? We're not talking about that because what we still haven't been able to build is one radical, revolutionary, independent political organizations that can counteract the messaging to these boys that Deion Sanders and the like is saying, and also hold these Black institutions accountable. Because we can have all the Black institutions we want in the world, but without that politic, they're nothing. Like the chairman said, right? They become just neo-colonial institutions here in our community. There's a whole YouTube with Chairman Fred dismantling some brothers in about 3 minutes about this very issue, right? And that gets lost in these conversations where we stay stuck talking about football and what's happening in the game on the field.
Hey, shout out to ZZ Lion Dad. No disrespect, Deion did not run his 40 in Timberlands. That's just folklore. I coach Christian Coleman, one of the fastest person in the world. Okay. Appreciate the super chat. All right. I don't care if Tim's or not.
I think we should really end on Hiram's note. I think that we need to have a sports component to Black Power media. And I think that this young brother needs to come on maybe weekly, once a week. And
message.
Okay. and talk about the impact is because I wholeheartedly agree with what both of you are saying about the broader implications and applications of this, and how this it's getting lost in the sauce when we focus on personalities or we focus on the smaller micro aspects of it. But I think too that this begins with organization. This begins with a movement, because these kids that's coming up out of high school, and I've been into this for the last 19 years, almost 20 years now. When my boy started throwing, when I first started throwing back shoulder passes to him at 9 years old in Riverdale, and the business of the sport, the politics of this is what Hiram was talking about, and the economics of it, and how it reinforces the whole capitalist system and national security state mentality. That's taken it to a whole nother level. And I don't think that these kids that we need to have this conversation with, that's coming up in junior high school and high school now, can be really brought into this understanding unless we begin to organize those parents in the park, unless we begin to organize those parents on the 12U and 13U. I'm telling you, Jared, when I was with my boys, when he played the different teams, North Henry, the Atlanta Ducks, all of these different teams, I was on the sidelines with parents that I didn't even know up until that point. And come to find out, I'm on the sideline with mamas who are working in the police headquarters, dads who are cops, other ones that's working in the mayor's office, and they boys on the same team as mine. We got this in common. And what this really, I recognize a cop when I see him because I could almost smell him. So, but even though I'm next to them, we rooting for our kids, and we be jumping, we getting kicked out the park together. You understand? Rooting for our babies, and that opened up a whole new level of conversation where my politics actually got across to people that if I had talked to them outside of the context of this, they wouldn't have heard a word I said. They would have been on some, I'm anti-police, I'm on some, militant, revolutionary stuff that, they trying to raise that the conversation would have went south, but it didn't. And I think that what Hiram is pointing out is very important to broaden our understanding of what's happening to our babies right now coming through this. What does the NIL really mean? How does the NIL function? We need to delve into some of these schools and some of these paymasters who pay for these kids to move to these big powerhouses. We need to trace that money and trace the institutionalization of poverty of that family that kid came from. You see, and how that's a responsibility of public officials that we elected. The whole educational system is trying to be revamped by the right at the grassroots level. And I think that this is really important for parents to understand who have their kids in junior high school and elementary school. We need to address this. Where's your kid coming from that wants this, that's got this NFL dream? It's cool to have that dream, and he's going to follow it, and he's going to try to take his family out of that poverty, but he has to have a class analysis to it. We have to have a class dimension. We can't have leadership by victimhood when it comes to police murder of Black folks, and we can't have advancement in sports by colonization or colonial marginalization neither. So I think I'm advocating that Hiram do an hour or so, one program on sports, and he could reach out to folks like Deion and have a civil conversation with him, and you could keep me in the background. You keep me in the background, with the baseball bat.
No. You gotta be the.
No, man. Everybody got to know their lane, bro.
You gotta be the co-host.
No.
Standing up.
All these books behind me. All these books behind me is fake. They belong to my life coach Tannekill Jones. And she read every last one of them. So I'm just saying. No, seriously though, we do need to bring this dimension to this analysis and get people like Deion into this discussion, because we know the limitations of their message, and we know the class nature of the system and the white supremacist construct of the NFL and the sports and sports in general. And I think you got a few conscious athletes, young athletes right now who see what we're talking about, and we need to try to get a voice to them, give them a sort of like a platform so we can have this discussion.
Sounds good to me. I keep saying that's exactly what I'm in favor of and inviting and hoping to see happen, because I definitely want to know
what is we doing.
It's some stupid shit there. you the guy.
Because Dhoruba, I can't, we gotta.
How come you don't have step and fetch it? How come you don't have step and fetch it? Eyes coming, boss. Eyes coming fast.
No,
real quick, because it came up. It came up in the chat, and I'm always in the chat. Shout out to the remixes. Is that the radicalization of young athletes is important. I'm sure. I mean, folks have been trying to do it since the days of Jim Brown, right, and Kareem and all those folks or whatever. But this notion around going back to Deion to wrap it up and just getting this piece of the pie, right? We understand. We know that the state and bourgeois society is not going to ever give us no piece of the pie unless they can control that, right? Mm-hmm. And we see that it came up with baseball and Major League Baseball. Right. In a few years, there will be no more so-called African-American baseball players in the major leagues. Right. Damn near maybe 50, 60 years after Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier. Most of those black athletes are going to be coming from the global South and specifically Latin America. And what ended up happening was many years ago, with the creation of these baseball academies in the Caribbean, in Venezuela, in Colombia, where Major League Baseball teams can go into these countries, literally buy an entire town, take all the boys, 13, right, under the age of 16, and just start drilling them and training them into baseball players, sifting, right, like the gold miners back in the conquest of the West.
Doing that with football now in Africa.
Right, to find the next David Ortiz, Big Papi, the next Manny Machado, the next whatever. And those boys don't have to go into the draft. And so they can just pump all of their funding and their money, which is pennies in those countries, into these boys and come out and get them a super mega star. And what that ended up doing was killing the investment into urban sports, right? So baseball fields no longer. And now and baseball is a big time money, right? Big time money sports. And so what you end up doing is now 50, 60 years after Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier, we're going right back again, where there will be no more African-American baseball players and Puerto Rican, right? Because Puerto Ricans under a colony, right? Again, Black and Puerto Rican, the Roberto Clementes, right? All these folks who are big time influencers in Major League Baseball are going to be wiped out completely because of colonialism, because of global capitalism, right? And the money system that plays in. So now you have all these kids who are still vying for football and basketball alone, because we're still in this place where shooting the ball, chasing the ball, hitting the ball is the only way out. Right. But we're not looking at the global implication, the global capitalism that's at play that is then locking the Dominican Republic for one, right? Whole towns owned by Major League Baseball players. And when these boys don't pan out at 19, 20, 21 years old, now what do? Because they didn't go to school. They're being drilled to play baseball. And now you have whole generations of young men in these countries who can't do anything but play baseball, but they didn't make it to the major leagues. And so now where are they? They're either driving taxis in New York or they're back home trying to figure out what to do with their lives. Because the extraction of Black labor, the extraction of Black bodies that maintains this capitalist bourgeois state ultimately, right? This settler colonial state has to go. And the more that we can link these global politics to the sports that we try to escape ourselves in, and that our folks and our young people try to escape ourselves in, the better we are at being able to radicalize these young brothers, right, into one, seeking a better route than chasing the ball onto a field and destroying your body, right? Or two, understanding that the revenue, to Jared's point, that they make from these sports should go back to the collective good. It should go back, right, to allowing so these institutions like the HBCUs can be at a lower rate, so more brothers and sisters can go to the and get themselves a college degree, or hopefully, right, free, right? Instead of waiting for reparations, we can build that now if we wanted to. That politic isn't there, and so I'll leave it at that. But someone brought up the baseball.
Well, I don't think you should leave it at that. I don't think you should leave it at that. I think that's the introduction to your Black Power Media sports program. I know Jerry got that on recording, so he could he can use that in our mix with you.
Hey, I've already told Dhoruba.
Hiram, so I'm looking forward to trying to get folks on your program. What your podcast is going to be once or twice a week. I don't know how y'all going to work that, but I'm with it. I agree 100% with what you just said, and I think
as long as you my co-host, on BSPN.
No, Jared's your co-host, man, because he's
no, I told him that I've already told Hiram I will work out a schedule around his, and I will produce his show.
Absolutely,
I will be his sidekick if he wants. If he got you, I'll sit in the background. Whatever has to happen.
You can't fuff this off, brother. You the one that talked about undermining the NIL, how it's undermining the union. My boy's in college, so he needs to hear this stuff. He needs to be able to give his coach a heads up on his email. Say, man, maybe you need to tune in Black Power Sports Media, you know, and so they put some braces in the back of these black coaches that's in the D1 who don't say nothing, you know. When
so
these kids are
Hiram, because we got to be able to answer.
I just don't know what I'm gonna do to this offense.
Stupid dude.
That's my new favorite podcast, The Big Simple out of DC. I have become a big fan of all of these people who have grown up in an era where they've never seen the Washington football team win, and they're all miserable and sad. So I have come back almost as a fan just to support this young generation of folks who are just heartbroken, trying to lead them out, bring them out.
Man. They're gonna get beat down, man. They bums. You see the Giants,
and good.
You see the Giants is 4-1. The Giants.
I have become an anti-fan. I tune in to watch them lose and to watch everybody be miserable until Dan Snyder is in jail, has been removed.
I'm about to break out my championship hat from 1990, 2005 or something.
There we go. So listen, ZZ Lion, thank you again. All the baseball are made in Haiti. Half of the Black Dominican are Haitian. That gets adopted and the name changed to be Dominican. Check out ESPN. Now we're going to say, no, with all due respect, thanks for the super chat. We're going to check out Hiram's BSPN, and co-hosted by Dhoruba. Dhoruba, man, look, I appreciate you. I love the fact I've said it publicly without you being around. I'll say what you hear. I love the fact that you are on this platform as often as you are. I love the fact that you will send us texts and chats and rant at me and others. I love it. And then I love that we can follow up and have a conversation with you publicly after the fact. And I also love that, Hiram, you were able to jump on with us as well. So
yeah, I really appreciate it. I really appreciated I really appreciated your involvement, Hiram, and it sort of ameliorated some of the disagreement that Jared and I had, because I felt that I understood the big picture that you were talking about, but I also know that the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. And everybody ain't prepared to take that step. And some people they do the right thing for the wrong reason. Some people do the wrong thing for the right reason, but I think we have to understand the limitations that's involved right now. But the way you broke it down on how sports it has been since we've been here, used just like music to encapsulate a certain type of energy and power from our community and misdirect it and keep it away from empowering us, So I think it's very important, Jared and Hiram, that I was able. Important to me, and I hope to the listeners to have had this discussion. And I'm glad I graded you the wrong way and you felt misunderstood.
No, I love it.
And you just had to have this program, I told Hiram, 3 o'clock in the morning, call me at 3 o'clock in the morning, posting stuff. I said, this must be from Africa because they're like 5 hours ahead of us. I said, this is from Jared? I said, yeah.
I told Hiram, I said, any excuse, anything that will get you to come on. So anytime we have an exchange, I'm always going to end it with, please come on and talk about it. So I appreciate you. And anytime, this is your home away from home for both of you. So whenever we can work out the schedule for this B-Span, or I mean BSPN on B-Span and Dhoruba's return on whatever show, whatever, I love it. So and whenever it's always an open invitation to the both of you. So thank you both very much. I really
thank you, Jared, and again,
thank you, Jared.
It's an honor to be in conversation, even if it's about football. It's an honor to be in conversation with you, brothers. So. Thank you, and as always, thank you for your sacrifice and everything you've done for us as a people. So
yes, sir.
It was
yes,
fun.
sir.
It was cool.
All right, good people. Like we always say, like Fred Hampton used to say to you, we know we can say peace because these two brothers will definitely fight for it. I'm gonna come back and we're gonna go look at this Panamanian festival for a few minutes to wrap up today. But thank you both very much, and catch you all next time here at I Mix What I Like It through the BPM platform. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. All right, everybody, back again. Big shout out to Dhoruba. Hiram, if you sticking around, you want to stick around? I don't know if you're in the background. You want to stick around? Okay. All right, just check it. You always welcome, but just check it. Thanks. Big shout out to Hiram and Dhoruba for coming through. That was remarkable, and it's always an honor to get to rap with both of them. And look forward to continuing the conversation. And I just want to reiterate again, everything we end up talking about here, we may start with sports, but there's obviously a direction we want to go in. So whether it's sports or entertainment, we don't have those conversations like other platforms might have them. So no one needs to ever fear in these spaces. The silliness is only going to be, is only going to last so long. It's only going to run so deep. All right. So that said, I want to take a minute to pull this up here and talk a little bit about my main man, my brother-in-law, Eyedeal Bayano, you will hear the discussion again about the origins of his name. But as it says here, his grandparents labored in Panama. His parents migrated from Panama. Today, Eyedeal Bayano gets to shine a light on Panama, just one generation removed from extreme poverty. Eyedeal Bayano was born and raised in the DMV, that is the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, it being one of the nation's wealthiest counties, that is Montgomery County. He and his family were similar to polar bears dropped in the desert. It was in Montgomery County, Maryland, where Eyedeal Bayano would begin to break generational barriers and also hone his talent in music. The pressure is on as the challenges as he challenges societal norms and a foreign family's expectations for him to choose to instead strive in the workforce. The Panamanian American artist wears his culture on his sleeve as he takes you down a suburban Belpre road on songs like Around the Way Anthem or On a Canoe Down the Dangerous Jungle River. Oh man, it went too fast. Hold on, let me back it up. Let me back it up. My bad. It went too fast. Down the Darien River, which by the way, I made that trip with him and the others in his family and his entourage, his crew, and it's a remarkable experience, of course, being out there around the indigenous area in Darien, where you feel the sun on your back for real. Expectations to choose to strive for him to work for the Panamanian artist wears his culture on his sleeve, whether it's the Round the Way Anthem or down a canoe or on a canoe down a dangerous jungle river in the infamous Darien Gap on the record Dale Dale, in which the video, which we've aired on this show before, you even get to see cameos from your boy and others in the family as well. It was an amazing experience and a great place to visit, albeit difficult to get to at some time. As a proud Afro-Latino, he fuses sounds from his upbringing into his music, tailored with the bilingual flows and a vivid storytelling. Eyedeal Bayano believes in freedom through music and commits to being a voice for the millions that lack one. Grab your bowl of plátanos, and put your shades on, and mira. That's his catchphrase. Mira, of course, meaning look. And here's the interview. Let's go.
Flor de como aquel viejo árbol que nos habla que el pueblo.
Yeah. So tell us that. So that's what we want to. That's what we definitely want to talk about. The Panamanian Festival up there in Brooklyn. You're performing, but let's talk a little bit about. Take a couple minutes and set this. Give us a little bit of this, the tone and the setting of what's going on up there today. And then we'll talk a little bit about your performance. But yeah, what is the Panamanian Festival? What's going on up there?
Absolutely. So every year, I think they're going on 30 years now. There is a Panamanian parade in Brooklyn where they shut off a big section of Brooklyn, and you have marching bands that come in from different parts of the country and also from Panama. And there's a parade that goes through the streets, not only highlighting our marching bands, but highlighting other things of our culture, such as the Diablitos, La Comparsa, people in traditional wear, people in traditional costumes. And we kind of use it as a way for Panamanians that are spread across the world to use this moment to come and fellowship and unite. And us Panamanians, we're spread everywhere. So this parade is a way for people of my parents' generation and then also the younger generation to come and connect and see one another. So we're talking 20 to 30 plus thousand Panamanians in one area of Brooklyn. It starts on Friday, ends on Sunday, but Saturday is like the big shebang. So today you're going to see some of Panama's biggest artists. You're also going to see other notable people from Panama. So it's a really exciting time of the year.
No, that's dope. So I was just pulling up some of the history here. That the parade was formed by Mr. Mauricio Allende. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing that. In 1995, to celebrate and spread Panamanian culture, tradition, and folklore, and to commemorate Panama's separation from Colombia, which took place November 3rd, 1903. So I think it's like the second Saturday of every October. And to your point, just as a little bit here of just what it looks like and who the people were who put it together. So when you talk about, so one of the things I wanted to start with is I'm just scrolling through here and people are looking at this, when people are talking about, well, there's two things I wanted to, I'll just say it this way. In your bio that I read a little bit ago, you self-describe as an Afro-Latino. And one thing, since I've had the privilege of course, marrying into your family and seeing Panama up close a little bit, it's black as hell. Panama is black as hell. I mean, it's crazy how, and then, because the traditional presentation of Latin America doesn't reflect even just what we're looking at here. So, and then when I'm thinking, even just from my generation, so that's one thing I wanted to ask you to talk a little bit about, and then just sort of blending over into to what you said a minute ago about who's going to be there. When I think back to my generation, I didn't know, until late that, for instance, Noriega is Panamanian. And other, celebrities and rappers and whatnot that many of us would have just grown up and been like, okay, they're just, they're black, or, it's just, but no, they're Panamanian. Anyway, so talk a little bit about both this Afro-Latino piece, some of that background that of course is reflective in your name in terms of Panamanian history, and then who might pop up there today.
Yep. So like you said, Panama is blickety black, and it's for a few reasons. Panama was a big port. The port of actually Portobello was one of them, but there were a few along the Caribbean coast where you had a lot of slaves that arrived in the 1500s, a whole 100 years before slavery would even exist in the United States. And what was unique about the slavery in Panama was that we had a big rise of what they call cimarrones, or maroons. So there was a lot of resistance. Bayano was one figure, but there were many. And after a while, these guys are like, hey, we're losing money on these slaves. They're escaping. They're ambushing us. Let's go set up shop elsewhere. So slavery actually didn't last as long in Panama as other nations because of the amazing rebellion efforts. And then also during the construction of the canal, you had tens and tens of thousands of people from Jamaica, people from Trinidad, Barbados, and other parts of the Caribbean. They came and they helped build the canal, and a lot of them stayed because there was a lot of job security over the years. And generations go by, they get blended into the Panamanian culture. Next thing you know, us Panamanians are not just speaking Spanish, we're speaking Spanish with mixed in Caribbean words into our Spanish that some of us don't even know that it comes from the Caribbean because it's that embedded. So growing up, it wasn't until I kind of got to school that I realized, oh, there are Spanish people that are not Black, because a lot of my family, a lot of the family, yeah, it's
They're
kind of
just laughing
backwards.
at the reverse, right?
Yeah, it was reversed for me. It was always normal to see grandma, uncles, aunts, etc., both in Panama and here, they were Black. However, a lot of people never, in Panama in general, there isn't a lot of talk about being Black. It's more so, I'm Panamanian. There's a lot of pride behind that, and I think there's some good and some bad there. Now, Bayano, where I take my name from, Bayano was a West African king that was brought to Panama in the 1500s, and he was, to me, a symbol of resilience, a symbol of leadership, and a symbol of resistance. He actually was never a slave. It's said that he conspired during the voyage to create a shipwreck. So when they landed on Panama's land, or what would be Panama, they created a shipwreck, and he grabbed some slaves and moved into the mountain jungles of what is today Colon or Portobello. And what they would do is they would set up shop. They got organized, and then they would come down, ambush, bring some slaves, go back up, come down, ambush, go up, and repeat process. And next thing you know, he has 20 to 1,000 freed maroons or cimarrones or freed slaves living in the jungle mountains of Panama. And it was organized civilization, and where they had doctors, they had the whole nine, and eventually you had what would be called the Bayano Wars, where the colonizers, would fight. But the thing is that terrain in Panama, we're talking about one of the densest jungles in the world to this day. So they were able to navigate that jungle because it wasn't too different from what they were used to in West Africa. So they were able to adapt. And because they were cimarrones, in today's day, we still see a lot of Africa because there are things that were not stripped. So I have a line in one of my songs called Panama where I say, if you see the carnaval and the masks on their faces, those are the same masks that came on the slave ships. So not only did we hold on to the masks, the artifacts, we held on to recipes, we held on to dances, we held on to a lot of things that are evident in our carnaval, evident, well, you'll see it today when you see recap of the parade. So it's a pretty multi-layered, pretty cool history to talk about. I can talk all day about it.
No, right on. No, I appreciate that. Definitely wanted to yeah, always like hearing you talk a little bit about that there. So let's talk a little bit about what you got going on today yourself. So you're going to be performing. Do you know about any other luminaries that are going to be there? And can you talk a little bit about how your performance is going to be set up? I don't know if we're going to get to see some footage later on or not, but like what's the plan? What's it looking like?
Yep. So I'll be hitting the stage on the main stage at around 3 p.m. It's actually my third time performing at the Panamanian Parade. Now I performed it in many other venues. I love performing in New York. I performed at places like SOBs, etc. But there's something about performing at the parade for your people, in front of your people. Someone asked me, this is the biggest crowd you've performed at. Are you nervous? And I say, I look into the crowd and I just see tias, tios, abuelos. I
Right
see those
on.
like my people. And I don't know any big names just yet. I've heard a couple rumors of a few other artists like Italian Somali and Akeem, who are big artists in Panama right now, who will be performing. But usually it's a little bit of everything. Usually there's a salsa band or some more traditional bands. There's some folklore involved as well. You'll still have marching bands as well. And these are Panamanian marching bands. So we're talking, imagine marching bands, but with big tin drums, with congos, with cornetas. It's pretty amazing. You'll see the Diablitos, who are dressed like devils, who are supposed to represent the colonizers, running around. And it's
That's
gonna
dope.
be, yeah, it's gonna be around 30,000 people, and then you're gonna also get a taste of Panama's cuisine. So there's gonna be a lot of vendors, a lot of older
Yeah,
people.
talk about that real quick, because I
people.
got joked a little bit when I was asked on here, about the what are the Panamanian delicacies, and I didn't have I wasn't quick enough with the answers, like, because I was like, I mean, I was like empanadas and arroz con pollo and I'm just trying to think what usually gets served in with your family,
Yeah.
the extended family, and all of that. But talk a little bit about that cuisine a little bit, and help me out so our audience gets a better understanding what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So Panama is because it's the only place on the planet where you can swim in the Pacific and swim in the Atlantic within the same hour. You can get from one ocean to the other. So I say that to say we love seafood. So we love our red snapper. We also love corvina, which in English is sea bass. So and some other fishes, porgy fish as well, but red snapper and sea bass. You can make it different styles. We love plátanos. Other places, other countries might call them. Other countries you might have heard the term tostones. We say patacones. I learned the word tostones when I was like a teenager. We eat a lot of different kinds of plantains, rice.
Hojalda, man. Hojalda.
Hojalda is like a fried bread. For our folks who are from Africa who are listening, hojalda is very similar to puff puff, except it's stretched out. And we eat it with different toppings like steak, salchicha, etc. We love finger food. So we have our main dishes, which are the red snappers, the coconut rice, the arroz con pollo.
Coconut rice, boy. That's the stuff right there. Yeah.
Tamales is like a hand grounded corn type of dish with chicken and other things in it, and it's wrapped in a big banana leaf and then cooked in the banana leaf. But then we also have a lot of finger foods, like you mentioned, empanadas, but we also have ceviche. Ceviche is a medley of seafood, from squid to fish, etc. Oh man, the list goes on. And then we love our drinks. So we don't say jugo the way you would find in a Spanish dictionary. We say chicha. So we have all different types of chicha, from tamarind, mango, really anything tropical, anything with coconut, pineapple, mango, guava, etc. I'm getting hungry just talking about it.
No, I was thinking, yeah, right on. I was thinking the same thing. It's a lot of good stuff in there, and corn is a big deal because, of course, your niece, my daughter's, is nicknamed Boyito. Like they, and so they take that stuff seriously because she was born in November, and I think there's a festival, there's a something that honors corn of some sort that takes place.
Yeah, for those listening, a bollito is similar to a tamal, but it's smaller, and it's made out of corn mashed up, and it's wrapped in corn husk and cooked in the corn husk. So when you eat it, you got to unravel it out the corn husk first. You can't get more natural and
Yeah, right on.
back to the motherland and that.
Yeah, right on. Hey, look, speaking of that, just real quick, man, your family is very dope, and we could obviously talk a lot about your family's history and all of that. But if you would say a word or two about your family, I mean, it was, I talk about it all the time, having the rare honor of being in the spot and not coming from a big family myself, being in the spot and seeing you all with and seeing my daughters there with great grandparents, great grandparents, grandparents, of course, both parents, unlimited uncles, cousins, and so on and so on and so on. And with some pretty dope background. I mean, including your grandfather, rest in peace, who we saw, one of the coolest old men to ever, like fly to the end. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I remember asking him, like, what's your strategy? And he just pointed to his drink. It's just like a little drink a day. You know what I mean? Anyway, but if you were to say a little bit about your family, your background that you talk a lot about in your music, and then if we can, I'd like to get a little sample of what we're going to get later on today at the festival.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. So I like to tell people I got my swag from my dad, and my dad got his swag from him. I say in a song, if I took your girl, blame my old man. If I broke your heart, blame my old man's man. Yeah. So it got passed down. My family, if I had to sum it up in a few words, my family is just a bunch of people that express love across the board. Love in the music, love in the food. We eat a lot, but it's not really because like, hey, we're hungry. It's a way. My mom's way of giving love is to cook for you, So the love is in the food. The love is in the coconut rice. The love is in the fellowship. And I can say my parents came to this country long before I was born. I want to say in the 80s. We come from humble beginnings, and look where we are now, generations later. And I think the reason is because my parents always, one thing is they kept us close to our roots. And that can mean many things. That doesn't just mean teaching us Spanish or teaching us about the culture, but they always told us stories. So I feel like I'm there in 1975 where I hear this story about my dad, or I feel like I'm there in the 1960s because I've been told these stories since I was young. And they also always found a way to keep us in Panama. So even when money was low, and if they had to save up maybe once every 2 years or once every 3 years, they always made sure to make it to Panama. And as I got older, I feel lucky because I have a lot of friends and colleagues that are from Panama, and maybe they didn't get to go as much, or they didn't get to, I guess, stay that close to the roots for whatever reason. And I think that has given us a lot of knowledge of self. We're the most deaf. And I think it when you know the inner you, it's easier to kind of walk forward. And so I can say I credit my parents for that, keeping us close to the roots and always teaching us of the history and keeping us embedded in the culture. So for me to make music, it really wasn't by accident. Panama is the birth of reggaeton, contrary to what anybody out there is going to say. It's the birth of Latin hip hop, whatever you want to call it, reggaeton, Latin hip hop, Latino urbano, the whole umbrella. And them keeping me close to my roots. I was born to make music. My brother was rapping in Spanish in the early 80s, in home videos, to put it into perspective. So they've kind of painted me and my sister's outline without even knowing it. It was always resilience, whether that's school, whether that's a goal. So I'm proud to be Panamanian, but then also proud to be of that family. And to answer your last question, today I'll be performing a few records. One record that I'm really excited about is called Pega y Chifea. Just released about a month ago. and it actually made the radio in Panama. So it's on the radio back home and getting a lot of love, doing very well on Spotify. And I'll also be performing. I'm going to tailor this performance a little bit different than my other performances because the crowd will be very Panamanian. So I'm performing a record called Panama that's out on all digital streaming platforms, and it kind of touches on the topics that we talked about earlier in this talk. It touches on Colón. It touches on the blackness of Colón. It touches on Portobello, the significance of El Nazareno, which I wish we spoke about more. It touches on my upbringing. It touches on the Panamanian slang, how we speak Spanish different than everybody. And it also touches on me and my identity. And lastly, I'll be performing an unreleased song that will release soon called Panama Boy. And just to give you a quick snippet, the hook goes, how the black but speak Spanish? I always got a gold chain dangling. I'm just a Panama boy. You never had a Panama boy. Como negro pero habla castellano. Y siempre tiene su oro guindando. Mira, I'm just a Panama boy. Nunca tuviste con un Panama boy. And the emphasis on the gold, it goes back to the Panama Canal Zone where if you had a job in the Panama Canal Zone, remember I said that we had a lot of Caribbeans come in and a lot of Black Panamanians working there. Depending on your level in the system or your profession, you were paid in either silver coins or gold coins. So if you had a crappy job, you were paid in silver coins. But if you had one of the higher positions and you weren't really using your hands, you were paid in gold coins. So that started the relationship with us and gold and the symbolism. So we aren't wearing gold because we're trying to be flashy or we're shining. It's the symbolism that we're always trying to push for better. So I kind of wanted to highlight that in that record, and that'll be one of the songs, unreleased songs that I'll be performing today. And I'm excited to say the least.
Right on, man. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming through a little bit and chopping it up with me and us in advance of your performance. I'll be looking to catch it, of course, later on as well. We'll make sure all the links to your social and everything is in the show description below. And peace to you, like we always say, like Fred Hampton used to say, peace to you, because I know you're willing to fight for it. So peace, Eyedeal Bayano, and catch you next time right here at I Mix What I Like.
Peace, Jared. Thanks for having me. Keep killing it. Shout out to Black Power Media. Keep killing YouTube. And I love what you all are doing. And I'm just grateful that I was able to have a moment with y'all. Thanks.
Pega chifea, piénsalo antes de presentar a tu vieja. Pega chifea, piénsalo antes de presentar a tu vieja. Pega chifea, piénsalo antes de presentar a tu vieja. Pega chifea, piénsalo. Dramática, fina fábrica, Rubén Blay medio de la plástica, bombástica, pura taquilla, dos cucharitas de árnica, golpeado, me tiene triste y destrozado, fui un pelado al helado, me dejé de los ojos pintados, me quedé con la cuenta limpiado, no recogían hasta caro prestado, era caro prestado, su caro robado, me hicieron la cama, eso se llama, when she said you open and you caught up in drama, pega chifea, piénsalo antes de presentar a tu vieja, pega chifea, piénsalo antes, can I get your hands up high? If you from Panama, can I get your hands up? Compa, no pise ese lodo, que en ese hueco se rebalan todos. Ojo, lunes con un capo, martes con un sapo, viernes con un cholo. Es Saturday, te llegaste con globo, no fuiste boyfriend, fuiste mayordomo. Y en el dos, te metieron dos. En tu chanti y con tu chore, más trabaja en el canal, en el Miraflor.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. Yeah. Big shout out to my man Eyedeal Bayano. A little bit of a little bit of him and his music. Please do check the link in the description below and get more on that. that was dope. And it's always good to see that, man. You know, I've been obviously, you know, he's like a little brother to me for real. I mean, knowing him and his family so long, to see him grow up from like middle school to stay, you know, focused on his dream and his music, and quietly he's was a great athlete, but he's quietly a genius. Like mathematically, he's a genius. So to see him like tutoring my children, who are themselves mathematically, you know, strong, they didn't get that from me. And to see him, you know, just stick with it and having his own family and doing all that, you know, is good to see. So I get it. And I get why. I finally get to see why, you know, older siblings have that pride in someone, you know, in their younger siblings. That was dope. So anyway, check him out if you can, and you know, get some of this, you know, this, you know, Panama. Panama is dope, man. Shout out to Panama. And big thanks again to Dhoruba. Big thanks again to Hiram. Big thanks again to all of you who are here live today, the remixers, to those who will see and hear this later. Thanks to you as well. Peace, only because we know you're willing to fight for it, like Fred Hampton used to say. I think there were a couple things that I forgot to mention, but we'll just always come back. And of course, tomorrow, the remix, all week long remix morning show. Please support that. There is one thing I did want to say very quickly, that we had a actually let me quickly, I'll wrap with this, because this was actually something I meant to bring up earlier. And I'm gonna come back and I think I'm a wrap with rap. I'm gonna come back and get one more run. Folks said that they couldn't hear Pharoahe at the beginning, so if you still hear, I'm gonna run that snippet again here at the end, because. And I think I corrected the volume issue and let you see again why it's over. The discussion about the greatest MC is over, and I'm almost feel sorry for MCs, because I don't think I mean, I guess it's like what basketball players must feel like. You're never going to be the GOAT. You're never going to be better than Jordan. So you just have to try. I guess just go out there and try and have a good career. Anyway. But on a serious note, real quick, like for about 24 hours the other day, our channel was demonetized. No explanation, no warning, nothing happened. No video was taken down. So I don't know what happened. So I just want to reiterate that BPM, we don't make much money off of the ad revenue anyway. Most of our videos have the yellow or red mark on them, meaning that advertisers are not interested. So whatever money we do generate comes from the support of the fundraiser, for instance. Link is in the show description, Patreon, or as a member to the channel, or whenever you can drop a few dollars on now we have Cash App availability or whatever else. So we really appreciate whatever you can do. We are stretching every penny to perform the mission of this platform. So none of it is being taken lightly. And we do have a redistributionist model on here as well, trying to emulate the politics we reflect in our work. So whenever you can, please support us as however you can. And if you can't financially, again, I get it. We get it. No worries, but please just hit like, subscribe, comment, put your criticism, whatever you got to say, put it in the comments, share the videos, do all of that kind of stuff, and encourage others to support the channel. So that said, I've blurred out again. I don't know why, but it almost doesn't matter, because really, I just want you to look at my man here and check this out, and then I will see you personally Wednesday on the remix, and of course on Friday back with Diallo and Geechee. So again, thanks to everybody once again. I'm gonna leave you with Pharoahe once more, this little glimpse of, and it's just, it is what it is. Peace, everybody. Thanks again.
With ammunition, my magic trick comes to fruition. You disappear. I'm the magician. I got something to say. Let's see who listens. I've got a gun with ammunition. My magic trick comes to fruition. You disappear. I'm the magician. in the cinemas, then I'ma pin him up against the whoop of a sending them back to the makers and ending them. I never really been in a position. Fuck, reload. I'm drilling it with the subliminal, then I'ma kill it with the minimal amount of venom. The fucking venom is venomous. My synonyms, venom, then I'm a sentiment, inhibited amount of unlimited round to the living room. Fucking finally finish him. I will leave everyone ripped. The stretch to the lead and the force to delivery. I'ma put him in a brain box, make a motherfucker mind stop. Put him in a line watch, 9 cops. Now, you read a motherfucking dime drop. 135 shots when I pop, 9 drops, the prime wax. Put him in the line. Time stop.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.
My magic trick comes to fruition. You disappear.
Accomplish anything. You play any and every position. Coaching, to kicking, to receiving, to running and juking. And, oh my goodness, I see that again in slow motion. Get off me. And you're going to have a lot of haters coming at you, but what you got to do is you got to shake them off, and get to your goal and accomplish it. And when that's done, it's a beautiful thing. I'm talking about going hard, extra, for that extra point. And when it's done beautifully, you talking about touchdown. Oh, and the crowd goes wild and they're celebrating with you and everything. Man, let's see that again. Nice.
Black Power Media, baby. That's how we do it.
Now go to blackpowermedia.org and get you some of that gear. Power yourself today. Yeah.